Naruto, advancing through pure effort in Konoha. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351 Bad News. Is it a failure after all? Qingming murmured as he looked at the shark that disappeared without a trace. Swish, a figure appeared beside him and said, "Qingming, are you okay?" Hearing this, Qingming retracted his gaze, looked at the person who came, shook his head, and said, "It's okay, Chihiro, how are you?" That's right, the person who came was none other than Uchiha Chihiro. At this time, the other party was soaked in blood all over his body, and he looked extremely hideous. However, Qingming could feel that the other party's life breath was still relatively stable, and it was obvious that he had not suffered too serious injuries. In other words, most of this blood was from the enemy. And just when he was thinking this, he saw Uchiha Chihiro patting his chest and said, "How could those chickens and dogs hurt me?" Yeah, hearing this, Qingming nodded, but he was not too surprised. He had sparred with the other party many times and had a certain understanding of his strength. Generally, the senior ninja was not the opponent of Uchiha Chihiro. Although the blocking team sent by Kurigakure was strong, the two strongest men were restrained by him, so it was normal for him to be safe and sound. His eyes swept past Uchiha Chihiro and Qingming looked at the others. Of a team of 100 people before, less than 60% of them survived. From this, it can be seen that the enemy's strength is indeed very strong. Suddenly, Qingming noticed that the two special Jonins who were forced to accompany him and were vaguely hostile to him were missing. After some inquiries, Qingming learned that the two men died on the battlefield. Qingming shook his head and was speechless. He had been thinking about solving these two people secretly before, but this is the result? So Qingming stopped paying attention to these two people and began to think about what to do next. From the reaction of Kurigakure, it can be inferred that the other party's goal is likely to have been achieved. As for whether the northern defense line was breached or the Kurigakure's assault force retreated safely, it is unknown. Now that their ship has been destroyed, they will definitely not be able to reach the battlefield in time. In addition, after a big battle, everyone needed to rest urgently, so it was even more impossible to arrive in time. After thinking about it, Qingming simply stopped being anxious and ordered, "Everyone, rest for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, we will set off again and continue to rush to the northern defense line." That's right, he planned to continue to carry out the original mission. No matter what the situation is, before receiving clear instructions, continuing to carry out the original mission is the least bad choice. As for making the wrong choice and being labeled as having no command ability, Qingming doesn't care. Anyway, he doesn't like to lead the team. If he can stop carrying out such tasks from now on, it would be even better. Unfortunately, this possibility is not great. In the end, the ninja world still speaks with fists. His command ability may be criticized, but his strength is unquestionable. In this way, as long as it is not too outrageous, he will be indispensable for subsequent tasks like this. At least, after encountering unexpected situations, he can rely on hard power to save more people. Just like this time, if other senior ninjas came, let alone repelling Hoshigaki Kisame and others, it would be good if they were not completely wiped out. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and 10 minutes passed quickly. After everyone treated their injuries, they followed Qingming and rushed to the destination. This direction was different from the direction that Zufang and others fled. This was also the main reason why Qingming concluded that the purpose of the hidden mist village had been achieved. Otherwise, even if they retreated, they should go to the northern battlefield to support the hidden mist assault troops there, instead of just leaving. "I just don't know what the real goal of the hidden mist village is this time," Qingming thought in his heart, but his steps did not stop, and the others followed closely behind him. Although many people died in the past battle, those with weaker strength were also eliminated. Therefore, their marching speed was slightly faster than expected. About 2 hours later, Qingming and others saw the coastline and the defense forces of Konoha. As he expected, the fighting here had stopped long ago. Now, only the troops left were cleaning up the battlefield. Their arrival really scared these people, and they thought that the hidden mist village was going to make a comeback. It was not until Qingming and others revealed their identities that these people were slightly relieved. After that, Qingming met the commander of the northern defense line, Kurosawa Chengshu, and then received the bad news from him. Qingming looked at the Jonin behind the table, stood up suddenly, and said, "What did you say?" The forward base was breached. That's right. The other party told him that not long ago, the forward base set up by Konoha in the Land of Waves was breached by the hidden mist village. Seeing Qingming couldn't believe it, Kurosawa Chengshu nodded affirmatively and said, "The Anbu has confirmed that the forward base has indeed been breached, and the ninjas on it are almost wiped out." Hearing this, Qingming took a deep breath and asked again, "When did this happen?" 2 hours ago, Kurosawa Chengshu replied. 2 hours ago, Qingming murmured, and immediately thought of the evacuation of Uchiha Qingming and others, and the time was right. At that time, he was still thinking that the hidden mist village must have achieved its goal. Now it seems that his idea is not wrong. The goal of Kirigakure was indeed achieved, but it was not as he expected that the northern defense line was broken or the attack was abandoned. Instead, the forward base where he was stationed not long ago was broken. Seeing that Qingming was speechless for a long time, Kurosawa Chengshu continued, "Based on the analysis of the existing intelligence, it can be concluded that the primary purpose of Kirigakure this time is to attack the forward base. During this period, whether it was the surprise attack on our side or the blockade on your side, they were all just a cover. Their target was that base from beginning to end." Hearing this, Qingming nodded. This conclusion was not difficult to draw. After all, after he led his men away, there were still more than 200 people in the forward base. In addition to the geographical advantage, it would not be a spur-of-the-moment decision to take down Kirigakure. "I just don't know if the result will be different if I stay there." Suddenly, this thought popped up in Qingming's mind, but he quickly suppressed it. He didn't want to encounter that kind of dangerous situation. Judging from the time the other party spent, it was faster than last time, and it was obvious that they came prepared. In that case, unless he uses the power of the main Gekyo Sharingan, he will probably only cause some trouble to the other party, and it is basically impossible to defend the base. After all, even a strong man like the third Raikage could be exhausted to death, let alone him now. Shaking his head, Qingming stopped thinking about it and turned to ask Kurosawa Chengshu, "What should we do next?" Now, the forward base is gone, and the Kirigakure troops attacking the northern defense line have also withdrawn. For a while, they really have nowhere to go. Chapter 352 Visit. "You guys," hearing Qingming's words, Kurosawa Chengshu thought for a moment and said, "Now the higher-ups don't know that you're here yet. You should stay here for the time being until new orders come down." He paused for a moment before continuing, "It just so happens that I'm also short of people here, and you can just stay here to help with defense. Is that so?" Qingming heard this, groaned, and then nodded. Anyway, they'd know where to go now, and it would be a good choice to stay here before there was an order from above. Afterwards, the two discussed the allocation of defense zones and some other things, and only separated after everything was arranged. After leaving the command center, Qingming thought for a moment and went straight to the temporary stationing place of his subordinates. After seeing them, Qingming didn't think of hiding anything, and directly told them that the forward base had fallen. "What? How is it possible, Captain? Is this information true?" When they heard his words, everyone was shocked and asked questions one after another. For a moment, the field was in chaos. Qingming frowned slightly and shouted directly, "Quiet!" Instantly, the field was silent. Qingming then told him the information that Kurosawa Chengshu had told him in detail. Hearing this, these subordinates, one by one, looked dazed, and still had an expression of disbelief on their faces. However, no one said anything. Seeing this, Qingming did not say anything more, but just stood aside quietly, leaving them time to digest the news. After a long time, someone asked, "Captain, what should we do next?" "What should we do?" Qingming replied directly, "Before the latest order from above comes down, we will stay here and take on part of the security of the defense zone." Then, he told them the agreement he had reached with Kurosawa Chengshu, and as for the specific task arrangement, it was left to them to discuss on their own. After doing this, Qingming no longer cared about these people and planned to leave. And at the moment he turned around, he seemed to have thought of something again, turned around, and said to Uchiha Chihiro, "Come with me." Hearing this, Uchiha Chihiro did not ask what was going on and immediately followed. Soon, the two left the temporary camp. Qingming kept walking and brought Uchiha Chihiro to another camp. There were tents everywhere with cross marks on them. Medical ninjas in white uniforms walked by from time to time. There were faint groans of pain in the tents. "Qingming, this is..." Uchiha Chihiro saw the scene here and spoke carefully. "Yes." Qingming nodded, confirmed his guess, and said, "Yes, This is the temporary hospital on the northern defense line. Sure enough, Uchiha Chihiro pondered for a moment, and then asked, "Why are we here? Does Kurosawa Jonin want you to help treat the wounded?" "No." Qingming shook his head and said, "I'll take you to see someone." "Who?" Uchiha Chihiro immediately became interested and asked quickly. He knew Qingming's personality. He looked kind and friendly on weekdays, but he was actually very arrogant. Most people really didn't get into his eyes. And now, he actually took the initiative to find someone, which was simply unbelievable. Qingming heard his question, but did not answer. He just said, "When you see it, you will know it naturally." Qingming walked quickly and found a tent in a short while. Before entering this camp, he and Uchiha Chihiro had already verified their identities, so no one came to check now. Qingming paused at the entrance of the tent for a while, leaving some time for the people inside to react, and then opened the tent and walked in. There was a bed in it, and a young figure was lying on it. His face was pale and there was an IV drip on his hand. This look obviously showed that he had just suffered a serious injury not long ago. The moment he saw this person, Uchiha Chihiro recognized his identity and said in surprise, "Uchiha Shisu, that's right, this person was none other than Uchiha Shisu." The other party came to this battlefield with him. He was assigned to the forward base, while the other party was arranged on the northern defense line. Originally, this place was relatively safe, but unfortunately it was suddenly attacked by the hidden mist village. Uchiha Shisu fought to protect the defense line. During this period, he was targeted by the hidden mist village and was seriously injured. He also got the news from Kurosawa Naruki, so he rushed over. As for why Uchiha Chihiro knew each other, it's very simple. As one of the twin stars of Konoha, another genius ninja of the Uchiha clan, Shunshin Shisu, is only slightly less famous than him. Therefore, as a member of the same clan and generation, Uchiha Chihiro naturally recognized each other, just as he recognized him. "Qingming, what's wrong with you?" Uchiha Shisu was a little surprised to see Qingming suddenly come. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly heard someone calling his name. So, he looked at Uchiha Chihiro and changed his words. "Who is this?" "Uchiha Chihiro, I was in the same base before," Qingming replied lightly. According to the memory of the previous life, Uchiha Chihiro and Uchiha Shisu had a good relationship. Qingming came here now and took him with him. After Qingming's introduction, the two formally met, and then Qingming and Uchiha Shisu talked about business. The first thing was to exchange information. Although Kurosawa Shigeki told him roughly what happened here, Qingming did not forget that the mist ninja who ambushed their support troops broke through from here. And in that battle, he dug out the information from Amurane Ryoma's brain that there were root ninjas cooperating in this process. Therefore, he naturally had a sense of distrust towards Kurosawa Shigeki. Therefore, he needed to get more accurate information from Uchiha Shisu. Compared with the two, there would be no big problems. Time passed by minute, and the two talked for more than 10 minutes. When Qingming saw that the other party looked a little tired, he stopped. After communicating with each other, Qingming basically confirmed that Kurosawa Shigeki had no big problems. Similarly, Uchiha Shisu's serious injury this time was not interfered by external factors, but was completely caused by his desperate fight. This made Qingming breathe a sigh of relief, and he thought to himself, it seems that Denzo's power here is not too strong. At this point, his purpose of coming here today has been achieved. Before leaving, Qingming checked Uchiha Shisu's body again and finally concluded that he was overexhausted and needed to rest. In this case, medical ninjutsu would not be of much use and might even have a counter effect. So, he simply did not take action. "Okay, Shisu, we won't disturb you anymore. You should have a good rest and try to recover as soon as possible." Seeing that the time was almost up, Qingming stood up and said goodbye. "Okay," Uchiha Shisu raised his head slightly and responded simply. Seeing this, Qingming did not waste any more time and left the tent with Uchiha Chihiro. Chapter 353 Promotion. 4 days passed in a flash. Since visiting Uchiha Shisu 4 days ago, Qingming's life has returned to peace. Every day, he is either practicing or on the way to practice. As for the mission, perhaps because the Kirigakure village had just swallowed the forward base and had not yet digested it, they not only did not increase the frequency of attacking the border of the Land of Fire, but instead began to defend. Similarly, Konoha was not in a hurry to retake the forward base. Therefore, both sides entered a strangely calm situation. For this reason, Qingming simply went through the motions when carrying out a mission, and handed over the specific matters to dozens of ninjas under his command. And he himself entered a crazy state of practice, this afternoon. Somewhere in the forest, Qingming sat cross-legged on a blue stone. The reflection heart technique was performed, and strands of special chakra were stimulated by this technique and emerged from his brain and immersed in his eyes. A tingling feeling came over him, and Qingming endured a discomfort and carefully felt the changes. About a minute later, the effect of the heart reflecting technique disappeared, and the special chakra decreased until it disappeared completely. After discovering this, Qingming did not hesitate and formed a seal again, performing the heart reflecting technique. Once, twice, 10 times, 20 times. Soon, an hour passed. The sunset in the sky had already dropped to the top of the mountain, and dusk was approaching. At a certain moment, Qingming opened his eyes, and a flash of excitement flashed in his eyes. Then, he opened the panel and saw that the heart reflecting technique column on it had been upgraded from LV7, 19,999, 20,000, to LV8, 150,000. That's right, after more than 4 days of practice, his heart reflecting technique finally advanced. Inexplicably, Qingming felt that his understanding of the heart reflecting technique had risen to a higher level again. At this time, the heart reflecting technique he knew was completely different from the useless ones that the Uchiha clan predecessors had tried their best to develop in the early days. If this illusion is released, I'm afraid all the ninjas of the Uchiha clan will go crazy. Unfortunately, he would never do this before he became invincible in the ninja world. He still understood the principle of a person who possesses a treasure is guilty. Once the Uchiha clan's illusion that can develop the Sharingan step by step is leaked, not to mention Konoha, even other villages will not let the Uchiha clan go. After all, the power of the Mangekyou Sharingan is known to all villages and families with a little background. They can't let the Uchiha clan grow like this. Therefore, in order to avoid the disaster of extermination in his hands, Qingming decided to keep the secret. Taking a deep breath and then slowly exhaling, Qingming closed his eyes. After his mood was completely calmed down, he closed the panel. Then, he saw him carefully forming seals as if he was practicing for the first time, mobilizing the chakra in his body, and performing the level 8 reflection of the heart technique. The familiar special chakra was born and flowed into his eyes, beginning to stimulate the nervous system therein, causing his eyes to revolve slowly. A minute and a half later, Qingming opened his eyes. He opened the panel again and saw that the progress bar of the Sharingan, Mangekyou in the blood column was still 5,231 50,000, and had not changed. Seeing this scene, Qingming was slightly disappointed. But soon, he restrained this emotion. Although this shows that the LV8 reflection of the heart technique cannot improve the evolution of his Mangekyou Sharingan by 1 point at a time, it does not mean that he needs to practice it 3 times as before. Qingming took a deep breath, closed the panel, concentrated his mind, and performed the reflection of the heart technique again. As he expected, after only 2 times, his Mangekyou Sharingan improved its evolution by 1 point. In other words, from now on, every time he performs the reflection of the heart technique twice, the Sharingan, Mangekyou will improve its evolution by 1 point. This efficiency has increased by 1/3 compared to LV7. According to this progress, he only needs about 15 months to accumulate 45,000 progress points, so as to upgrade the Mangekyou Sharingan. 15 months is 1 year and 3 months. It is now June. In other words, in September next year, his Sharingan will be able to evolve into the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan. This time point is more than a month earlier than Naruto was born. Even so, it is still based on the premise that the chakra he allocates to the reflection of the heart technique every day in the future will not increase. If the investment is increased and the time for the palm immortal technique to strengthen the body is compressed, the speed can be even faster. In addition, according to the current progress, when the evolution degree of his Mangekyou Sharingan reaches 30,000/50,000, his reflection of the heart technique will be promoted to level 9. At that time, its effect on the evolution of the Sharingan will increase, and this time will be further shortened. Therefore, as long as there is no major change, his Mangekyou Sharingan will definitely complete the evolution before September next year. After reaching this conclusion, Qingming's mood, which had finally calmed down, became agitated again. Qingming tried for a long time but failed to suppress the restlessness. He simply stood up and came to the place where the shadow clones were practicing. Although he had just copied and learned a water-style, great shark bullet technique from Uchiha Qingming not long ago, just like the narrow trouble extraction technique and water-style, mist hidden technique he had learned before, he did not have any extra chakra to invest. So, it had to be put aside for the time being. At present, there are still only 6 shadow clones practicing in the field, 3 of which are practicing wind style, wind blade, Rasengan and wind style, Shuriken. The other 2 are practicing water style, water dragon bullet technique and water style, water array wall. As for the last one, he is practicing illusion sword technique and instant sword technique. It can be said that both time and chakra have been squeezed to the limit by him. Seeing this scene, Qingming nodded with satisfaction, then returned to the blue stone and practiced reflection heart technique again. Although this kind of repetitive practice has the blessing of the proficiency panel and can see every progress, it will still feel boring after a long time. Therefore, every once in a while, he will change a skill to practice, such as the palm fairy technique. Before leaving the forward base, Qingming said that at most 10 days or half a month, his body will reach the critical point of transformation. Now more than 4 days have passed, and Qingming's feeling is getting clearer. He can be sure that this critical point will come in at most 1 week. At that time, by using the power of human control, he can easily break the shackles and transform his body. By then, the physique attribute will increase, the chakra limit and chakra recovery speed will increase, and he will have extra chakra to practice fine extraction technique, water style, mist hidden technique, and water style, big shark bullet technique. With this thought, Qingming no longer thought about it, and began to seize the time to perform the palm fairy technique to strengthen his body. Chapter 354 Turning Point. In the forest, Qingming practiced for about 2 hours. When it was completely dark, he packed up his things and returned to the camp and his residence. However, as soon as he came back, someone came to his door before he could even sit down. Qingming looked at the Konoha Chunin in front of him and frowned. "Do you know what Captain Kurosawa wants to see me about?" "That's right, this person was sent by Kurosawa Changshu to find him." Hearing this, the Konoha Chunin shook his head and said, "I don't know. Anyway, Captain Kurosawa asked you to go there immediately." "Okay." Qingming sighed helplessly, picked up the Kusanagi sword next to him, and walked out of the tent. A few minutes later, he came to the command center of the northern defense line. Qingming keenly discovered that there were more people here than in the same period of time in the past, and many of them were in a hurry. It seems that something big has really happened. Suddenly, this thought came to Qingming's mind, but he suppressed it immediately. Dong dong dong. Qingming found Kurosawa Changshu's office and knocked on the door. "Come in." The next moment, a familiar voice came from behind the door. Qingming was not polite and pushed the door open. Creak, the door was pushed open. Qingming saw Kurosawa Changshu with a worried look on his face. "What happened, Captain?" Qingming asked directly after entering the office. "Hey." Hearing this, Kurosawa Changshu sighed lightly, and then said, "Captain Narikigwang just sent a message that Shuang Town was broken." "What?" Qingming was shocked when he heard this, and asked hurriedly, "Is it Shuang Town in the battlefield of Rain Country?" "Yes." Kurosawa Changshu nodded and said, "You came from there, you should know the importance of Shuang Town." "Of course." Qingming nodded with an ugly look. Of course he knew the importance of Shuang Town. After retreating from Fengliu Town, he stayed there for a long time. He participated directly or indirectly in the several battles for the Zishan stronghold and the 2 decapitation operations against the Iwagakure attacking forces. There are also the 4 tails Jinchuriki, Laozi, and the 5 tails Jinchuriki, Han, who also fought there. With so many forces gathered together, its importance is self-evident. Once this town is lost, Konoha will no longer have important strongholds to defend. As long as the Iwagakure village straightens the front line, it will be able to directly threaten Konoha's base camp in the Land of Rain. By then, Konoha's defensive force will be compressed to a very small range, the activity area will be greatly limited, and the choices will become scarce. On the contrary, the choices of the Iwagakure village will be richer. Combined with the memory of the previous life, Qingming immediately guessed the next plan of the Iwagakure village. That is to send an elite force to bypass Konoha's base camp in the Land of Rain and directly raid the mainland of the Land of Fire. In the memory of the previous life, it was the East Dead Man who performed this task. The result of this battle was that Konoha's border defense forces stationed in that direction were almost completely wiped out. In the end, it was Minato Namikaze who arrived in time to turn the tide. Despite this, the Iwagakure village still opened a gap here. After that, in order to force the Iwagakure village to return to defense and to buy time for the front-line troops, the Minato team carried out the task of destroying the Canopy Bridge, which is the famous Battle of Canopy Bridge. In this battle, 2 Sharingan heroes were born in Konoha, but it also laid the groundwork for future tragedies. At the same time, the Sand Village saw an opportunity and sought a decisive battle with Konoha. For this reason, it did not hesitate to use the village's hero, Scorch Release, Yakura, as a bargaining chip in exchange for the reconciliation of the Kurigakure village. And this also gave the Kurigakure the strength to launch a full-scale attack on Konoha, thereby breaking through the border defense line and breaking into the territory of the Land of Fire. In the memory of the previous life, Might Ai opened the 8 gates and kicked the 7 ninja swordsmen into the 3 auspicious treasures under this background. However, now that the 7 ninja swordsmen have been killed by him, this incident is unlikely to happen. But it is undeniable that the series of problems caused by the destruction of Shuang Town are enough to illustrate its importance, and it can even be said to be a turning point in this ninja world war. Just when Qingming was lost in thought, Kurosawa Changshu said, "Qingming, have you thought of something?" Qingming's thoughts were instantly pulled back when he heard Kurosawa Changshu's words. He was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, "Nothing." He naturally couldn't tell the other party these things. It's not that he didn't want to, but the situation didn't allow it. Not to mention how to explain his source of information after telling the other party, he didn't want to get involved in the trouble involved. Take the Battle of Canopy Bridge. On the surface, it was Kakashi and others who were not strong enough, and Namikaze Minato was unable to rescue them in time, which led to the tragedy. But with a memory of his previous life, he knew very well that Uchiha Obito had been targeted by Uchiha Madara early on, so all this was very likely the result of the other party's deliberate calculation. If combined with the fact that he later designed Nahara Rin to die in Kakashi's hands in order to force Uchiha Obito to open the main Gekiyo Sharingan, the situation would be even more obvious. Besides, behind Uchiha Madara, there's Black Zetsu, a filial son. Qingming really doesn't want to touch these nesting dolls. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming looked at Kurosawa Changshu and asked, "When did this happen?" "Just a few hours ago," Kurosawa Changshu replied. "Then what arrangements did Captain Naro make?" Qingming asked again. "Yes, there really is," Kurosawa Changshu nodded after hearing this. As he said that, he took out a task scroll from the drawer of the table, handed it to Qingming, and then said, "Just now, the latest order about you came down. Captain Nara ordered you to lead your troops to temporarily stay on our line of defense and beware of the sudden attack from the Hidden Mist village." "That's right, until today, the task transfer order for their troops came down." Before, Qingming was still wondering why it took so long, but now he finally understood. Obviously, Nara Kigwang knew the situation on the battlefield in the Rain Country and the situation in Shuang Town. The capture of Shuang Town was definitely not a sudden incident, and there must have been a sign of it. Therefore, he has been waiting for the result. If the place can be defended, then waiting for Qingming's order, it is very likely to counterattack the Kingdom of Waves and recapture the forward base. And now, Shuang Town was breached by the Hidden Rock Village, and they can only stay still, so the mission has changed from attack to defense. It is for this reason that the mission order came down today. Qingming is happy to see the content. He just needs some time to strengthen his body and make a breakthrough in the physique attribute, and this garrison mission is just right. Thinking of this in his heart, Qingming took the mission scroll, checked it carefully, and put it away after confirming that there was no problem. After that, the two talked for a while, put the previous temporary decision into practice, and then Qingming said goodbye and left. Chapter 355 Promotion. After leaving Kurosawa Naruki's office, Qingming did not return to his residence directly, but first found his dozens of subordinates. Qingming did not tell them about Shuang Town, but told them the order from above asking them to stay there. Although they have been doing this for the past few days, it is only legitimate after having a formal mission. In this way, the hearts of these subordinates are reassured. After that, Qingming did not stay any longer and quickly returned to his residence. He moved quickly and quickly prepared food. After filling his stomach, he began to practice at night. As mentioned before, Whether it is to use the palm immortal technique to strengthen the body or to use the reflection heart technique to promote the evolution of the Sharingan, it takes a certain amount of time. If you want to complete the daily plan, it is definitely not enough to rely on the little time during the day, so you have to continue practicing at night. Fortunately, with the proficiency panel, Qingming can clearly see every progress. Otherwise, he may not be able to stick to this 007 inches life. The sun rises and sets. In the blink of an eye, another week had passed. This afternoon, still in the forest, Qingming finished performing the palm immortal technique and carefully sensed his body. After a long time, he opened his eyes and muttered, "Almost done." At this time, Qingming only felt that his body had reached the edge of transformation, but was restricted by an invisible shackle. If it were an ordinary person, in order to break this shackle, in addition to slowly killing time, he also needed sufficient qualifications. But he was different. He had the pupil technique of human control, which could actively guide the body to evolve. Now, it was time to use it. Thinking of this, Qingming directly released the shadow clone technique. In an instant, the shadow clone that was practicing various skills in the forest turned into a ball of chakra, carrying the relevant practice experience and memory, and returned to his body. Thanks to the powerful mental power brought by the 19-point spirit attribute, even after such a shock, his brain was still clear, but his face was a little pale. Taking a deep breath, Qingming slowed down, and then began to review these training experiences and memories, turning them into proficiency points on the panel. About a quarter of an hour later, Qingming opened his eyes again, and the relevant training experiences and memories had been digested. The next step is to strengthen the body. With a murmur, Qingming closed his eyes again, and spent a little time to adjust his state to the peak. After confirming that there was no one around, he opened the Mangekyo Sharingan. The next moment, his eyes changed from the state of 3 Magatama to the shape of a black sun. Feeling the powerful pupil power contained in his eyes, Qingming was a little intoxicated, but soon he gathered his mind and activated a pupil technique that resided in his right eye. In an instant, the power of human control was added to his body. Qingming only felt that his control over his body had reached a new height, as if he could control its growth and evolution with a random thought. However, Qingming knew that this was just his illusion. With his current pupil power, he could not do this at all. Even if his pupil power is improved by 1 or 2 levels on this basis, he still can't do this. As for the reason, it's very simple. No matter how fast he evolves, it's impossible to complete the evolution in a few seconds or tens of seconds. Perhaps, only when his Sharingan evolves to the level of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and he doesn't have to worry about blindness, he can try it a little. Now, forget it. Qingming quickly gathered his thoughts, raised his hands, quickly completed the seal, and performed the LVA palm immortal technique. A strong yang escape chakra appeared in his body, along his chakra meridians, quickly invaded all parts of his body. Then, under the guidance of human control, it began to cause his body to transform. In just a moment, Qingming felt that the invisible shackles in his body that restricted his physical evolution were broken, and replaced by an unprecedented sense of pleasure. At this moment, Qingming was like soaking in a hot spring. His whole body was warm and very comfortable. Qingming resisted the temptation to indulge in it, cancelled the human control, closed the Mangekyo Sharingan, and began to silently feel the changes in his body. Time passed by minute. About half an hour later, Qingming opened his eyes. Then, a strong vitality emanated from his body, and after a long time, it gradually converged. Panel. With a thought, Qingming summoned the proficiency panel. The next moment, the familiar light blue light screen appeared. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 12 years old. Constitution, 1617. Spirit, 19 chakra, 31,500, 7,096,475,572, bloodline, Sharingan, Mangekyo, 5,231 50,000, 5,903/50000, skills, chakra refining technique, LV5, 1439, 5,000, LV5, 1583, 5,000, wind style, wind blade, LV6, 3,405 10,000, LV6, 4,725/10000, wind style, Recentrican, LV4, 462/2000, LV4, 1566, 2000, water style, water array wall, LV4, 954/2000, LV5, 334/5000, Water Style, Water Dragon Bullet Technique, LV4, 721/2000, LV5, 101/5000, Water Style, Mist Hidden Technique, LV1, 51/200, Water Style, Great Shark Bullet Technique, LV1, 1/200, Shadow Clone Technique, LV4, 540/2000, LV4, 785/2000, Chakra Absorption Technique, LV5, 4150/5000, LV5, 4350/5000, Rasengan, LV6, 3545/10000, LV6, 4865/10000, Palm Immortal Technique, LV8, 4065/5000, LV8, 6954/5000, Chakra Scalpel, LV5, 2200/5000, Thin Wound Extraction Technique, LV1, 1/200, Heart Reflection Technique, LV8, 1/5000, LV8, 1345, 50,000, Illusion Sword Technique, LV6, 1/10,000, LV6, 1200/1000, Instant Sword Technique, LV4, 1100, 2000, LV5, 540/5000, Chakra Control, LV5, 2610, 5000, LV5, 2780/5000, Perfect Skills, it has improved. Qingming looked at the physique on the panel that increased from 16 points to 17 points, and nodded with satisfaction. Then, he began to feel the changes brought to him by this improvement in physique. The first is the theoretical chakra limit. It has increased by about 30,000 points, and the specific number is from the original 160,000 points to the current 190,000 points. The second is the chakra recovery speed. This can be divided into two parts, the chakra that the body recovers naturally and the chakra that is recovered by running the chakra refining technique. Among them, the former has increased from 96,000 points per day to the current 116,000 points, a full increase of 20,000 points. The latter is because of the improvement of his physical fitness, which also enhances his body's ability to withstand pressure. So that the time he can run the chakra refining technique every day has increased from the original 12 hours to 13 hours. And every hour of running the chakra refining technique can restore him 2,000 points of chakra. In other words, this part can increase his chakra recovery by 2,000 points. In this way, together, the chakra he can recover every day will increase by 22,000 points, that is, from 120,000 points to 142,000 points. Qingming decided to divide this additional chakra into three parts. Among them, 12,000 points are used for the practice of water style, Great Samudin technique, which can gain about 80 points of proficiency every day. 5,000 points were used to practice the water style, Mist Hidden technique, which could gain 100 points of proficiency every day. The last 5,000 points, Qingming was going to put into the practice of the slightly extracted technique. According to the consumption during the introductory practice, these chakras could increase his proficiency by about 60 points, although not much, it was considered to be a start of improvement. In this way, his skills were no longer just for show. Qingming was very satisfied with this. Chapter 356 Summary and Imagination. After checking the gains brought by the physical improvement, Qingming moved his eyes to other parts of the panel. The first is chakra. After nearly 2 weeks of excavation, the potential of his body has been discovered again, and the chakra limit has increased by more than 4,000 points, directly from 70,964 points to 75,572 points. Originally, Qingming was quite satisfied with this increase. Unfortunately, he had just seen the amount of chakra of Uchiha Qingming not long ago, and he felt it was boring. But soon, he put this negative emotion behind his mind. There is no other reason. Uchiha Qingming's chakra amount is large, but it has basically been finalized. He is different. He is still in a period of rapid growth. As long as he insists on running the chakra refining technique every day, the chakra limit can be continuously improved. Now, his chakra refining technique is level 5, and every hour of operation can increase his chakra limit by 32 points. In this way, 13 hours a day is 416 points of chakra limit, and a month is 12,480 points. At this rate, it won't be long before his chakra volume exceeds that of the other party, so Qingming is not in a hurry. Of course, the premise of maintaining this growth rate is that his physique attribute and spiritual attribute are constantly improving. In this way, his potential will continue to increase. Otherwise, when he taps the current potential of his body, the amount of chakra in his body reaches the theoretical upper limit and will stagnate. And this, for ordinary people, is the upper limit of qualifications. Fortunately, with the existence of human control, he doesn't have to worry about this problem for the time being. Because whether it is mental or physical, he can guide the evolution through this pupil technique, and qualification is just a false proposition for him. Retracting his thoughts, Qingming cast his eyes on the blood column. It can be seen that his Sharingan, Mangekyo, has gone through 1/10 of the progress before it evolves again. Now, its progress bar has reached 5,903, 50,000. Qingming has a vague hunch that when his evolution degree breaks through the 10,000 mark, his spiritual attribute should increase. Moreover, it is not as simple as increasing a little. By then, his potential will be increased again. This made Qingming a little excited. However, after a little calculation, he calmed down, because it would take about 1.5 months to reach this time point. Before that, his spiritual attributes were basically unlikely to be improved. Of course, this does not mean that before that, his improvement of the evolution of the Sharingan, Mangekyo, was useless. Not to mention the more vague things such as enhancing the defense of Susanoo, the improvement of the duration of Heaven alone is enough for him to persist in investing. Now, when he uses Heaven again, the time he can persist in a single time is more than half of the initial 10 seconds, almost reaching about 16 seconds. This time, whether it is used for attack or escape, the concealment and safety will undoubtedly be greatly improved. In this way, Qingming is naturally willing to invest. Shaking his head, Qingming no longer thought about it, and turned to look at the skill column. It can be seen that the proficiency of several skills that he has paid special attention to has improved a lot. Among them, Wind Style. Windblade has been upgraded from level 6, 3405/10000, to level 6, 4725/10000. With another 5275 points of proficiency, it can be successfully promoted. According to the current progress, it will take about 50 days to accumulate. According to Qingming's estimation, level 7 is almost the pinnacle of Wind Style, Windblade. By then, he may be able to try to develop flying ninjutsu. More than a month ago, on the way to the land of craftsmen, he had the idea of using Wind Style chakra to develop flying ninjutsu. At that time, the conditions were not mature, so he temporarily put it aside. Now, Qingming stretched out his right hand, and a ball of Wind Style chakra was condensed by him, and then it rotated and jumped around his palm, like an elf, full of spirituality. Now, maybe it's enough. Of course, if it's not enough, he will have to wait until he upgrades the level of Wind Style, Shuriken, and becomes more familiar with Wind Attribute chakra before trying it again. Thinking of this, Qingming cast his eyes on Wind Style, Shuriken. After nearly 2 weeks of practice, his proficiency has been improved from LV4, 462/2000, to LV4, 1566, 2000. In no more than 5 days, he can be promoted to LV5. When Wind Style, Windblade breaks through LV7, he can almost be promoted to LV6. In this way, he has a greater chance of success. Flying, Qingming looked up at the blue sky, murmured, and fell into endless reverie. After a long time, he came back to his senses, shook his head, and looked at Water Style, Water Array Wall, and Water Style, Water Dragon Bullet technique. After his practice, these two ninjutsu have been improved from LV4, 954/2000, and LV4, 721/2000, to LV5, 334/5000, and LV5, 101, 5000, respectively. After being promoted to the first level, both the casting speed and the maximum power have been greatly improved, and the practicality has been further increased. There are also Phantom Sword Technique and Instant Sword Technique. I won't mention the former, which is still at level 6. The latter is different. After 2 weeks of practice, It has been upgraded from level 4, 1100/2000, to level 5, 540/5000. In this way, his melee level has improved again. This is the horror of the proficiency panel. As long as he is given time, his strength will continue to improve and sweep everything. Slurp Qingming wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and finally cast his eyes on Rasengan, Palm Fairy Technique and Heart Reflection Technique. Among them, Rasengan is the same as Wind Style, Wind Blade. It will take about 50 days to be promoted to level 7. Palm Fairy Technique and Heart Reflection Technique have already broken through to level 8, but it is more difficult to go up. After all, it is not so easy to accumulate 50,000 points of proficiency. Hey! Take your time. With a sigh, Qingming closed the proficiency panel, sorted out his mood, and then began to perform the Palm Immortal Technique to strengthen his body. Just like after the previous transformation, as his physique attribute improved, the strengthening effect of the Palm Immortal Technique on his body also weakened a lot. However, after all, it is a level 8 skill, and with the guidance of human control, he can still continue to strengthen his body. It's time. Qingming carefully felt the changes in his body, and it was not noticeable once or twice. So, during this period before nightfall, he began to perform the Palm Immortal Technique uninterruptedly, condensing the Yang Escape Chakra and strengthening his body. After nearly 100 times, Qingming finally came to a conclusion. According to the current frequency of 240 times a day, it will take about a month for his body to reach a new critical point. This time can be long or short, depending on how the situation changes next. If the situation is stable, then a month is really nothing. But if the situation is unstable, then a month is indeed long enough. Shaking his head, Qingming didn't think any more about it. He packed up his things and returned to the camp, his own residence. Chapter 357 Fulfillment. Time flies, and the years pass by like a shuttle. In the blink of an eye, more than half a month has passed. Time came to the beginning of July. This afternoon, somewhere in the forest, a sound of fighting came. Looking for the sound, I saw two figures intertwined, one of whom was Qingming, and the other was Uchiha Qingming. Qingming held a long sword, and his body was like a ghost, appearing in front of Uchiha Qingming from time to time. Uchiha Qingming urged the three Magatama Sharingan to the limit, trying his best to follow Qingming's every move, and constantly swung the kunai in his hand to block. Ding ding dang dang, the long sword and kunai collided, making a series of crisp metal collisions. However, if you defend for a long time, you will lose. Uchiha Qingming's passive defense did not last long after all. When the battle lasted about 5 minutes, Qingming seized the opportunity, instant sword technique adjusted the direction, and phantom sword technique affected the senses. Then, a knife stabbed out and pressed against his throat. Feeling the sharp breath coming from the tip of the knife, Uchiha Qingming quickly stopped his body and froze in place, not daring to move. Seeing this, Qingming turned his wrist and retracted the long knife. In front, Uchiha Qingming finally moved. He put down the kunai in his hand, sighed softly, and said, "Hey, Qingming, how did you practice? I haven't slacked off during this period. Why do I feel that the gap between you and me is getting bigger and bigger?" Qingming heard this and smiled without saying anything. What can he say? Could he say, "Brother, don't embarrass yourself, I'm cheating"? Although this is the truth, he can't say it. What's more, he didn't get it for nothing. Every bit of proficiency increase on the panels is sweat. In this case, how can it be said to be cheating? The panel played a little role in it at most. Of course, he didn't need to explain anything. After dealing with the other party for so long, Qingming knew that he was just complaining and was not really spying on his secrets. Otherwise, he would have sent the other party to the Pure Land long ago. The panel was the second most secret to him after time travel, and he would not let go of anyone who dared to spy on it. Just as he was thinking about this, Uchiha Qingming seemed to have thought of something, and suddenly came close to him and said mysteriously, "Qingming, have you heard about something?" "What is it?" Qingming replied indifferently. "It's about the fact that some time ago, Kakashi, the disciple of Minato's senior ninja, transplanted our family's Sharingan," Uchiha Qingming said. Yes, the development of things was just as he expected, or the same as in the previous life. The Hidden Rock Village really bypassed Konoha's base camp in the Land of Rain and sent an elite force to raid the border of the Land of Fire. The defense forces stationed there by Konoha were almost wiped out. In the end, It was Namake's Minato who arrived in time to deal with the invading Hidden Rock ninja. But this only slowed down the pace of the Hidden Rock village's attack, and could not stop them from continuing to break through this gap. In order to gain time to mobilize troops, Konoha formulated a plan to destroy the important material transportation channel of the Hidden Rock village, the Komubi Bridge. A week ago, under the cover of several teams, the Minato team successfully sneaked into the rear of the Iwagakure-occupied area and came to the vicinity of the Komubi Bridge. Qingming didn't know the battle process in the middle, but he knew that the result was the same as in the previous life. Uchiha Ibito sacrificed, and Nahara Rin followed his will and transplanted one of his eyes to Kakashi, so that Kakashi got a Sharingan. It seemed to be to boost morale and to build momentum for Minato Namake's. In short, the Battle of Komubi Bridge, the birth of two Sharingan heroes at the same time, quickly spread, and even he who was far away here, also heard a little bit. But, is there any problem with this matter? Qingming was puzzled, so he looked at Uchiha Chihiro and said, I have heard of this matter, what's the matter? Hearing this, Uchiha Chihiro looked around and confirmed that there was no one, then he said, I heard that some people in the clan have opinions about Kakashi's transplant of Sharingan, and they seem to be seeking to get that eye back. Hearing his words, Qingming suddenly realized, yes, think about it, the Hyuga clan did everything to ensure that the Byakugan would not leak out. As the Sharingan is as famous as it, how could the Uchiha clan be willing to let it be obtained by outsiders? Even if Kakashi said that it was Uchiha Ibito who took the initiative to give it, it would not work. Therefore, it is normal for such voices to arise in the clan. However, Qingming knew that this thing could not succeed. Not to mention that in the memory of the previous life, more than 10 years later, Kakashi still used this eye. The existence of Minato Namake's alone was enough to protect Kakashi. As long as he grasped that this eye was given by Uchiha Ibito on his own initiative and it was his last wish, and combined with the general trend of the village needing heroes, then the Uchiha clan would not be able to take back this Sharingan unless they were willing to bear the notoriety of oppressing war heroes. Obviously, the Uchiha clan would not want such a reputation. What's more, although Hatake Sakui was dead, as the famous Konoha White Fang, the connections he left behind still existed. These people may not say anything openly for various reasons, but they will definitely help Kakashi in secret. In this way, it is even more impossible for the Uchiha clan to get the eye back. Uchiha Chihiro didn't know what Qingming was thinking, and he was still saying, if you ask me, those people in the clan are really stupid. It's just an eye. Since Ibito has already given it to the other party, what else do they want? What's more, without the blood of the Uchiha clan, that Kakashi can't play the full effect of the eye. There is really no need to offend others because of it. Hearing these words from Uchiha Chihiro, Qingming looked at him in surprise. He thought that the other party would stand on the side of the radicals when encountering such a thing, but he never thought that he could see so clearly. Indeed, a mere Sharingan, in the hands of someone who does not have the blood of the Uchiha clan, can't play its full power at all. In this case, it is really unwise to insist on taking it back. This can certainly maintain the reputation of the Uchiha clan as a powerful family in Konoha, and at the same time warn other people with ulterior motives who covet the Uchiha clan's Sharingan. But at the same time, this move will also cause a lot of people to be disgusted. After all, the person who got this Sharingan is not from another village, but a war hero in this village. The Uchiha clan's approach cannot make them share the same hatred of the enemy. On the contrary, giving up on recovering this eye may also win a good reputation for the Uchiha clan. In this way, comparing the two, it is clear at a glance which choice to make. It is estimated that in the previous life, Uchiha Fugaku took these into consideration, so he suppressed other voices in the clan and gave up recovering this eye. I'm afraid it's the same in this life. Qingming thought so in his heart. In front, Uchiha Chihiro was a little scared by his gaze, and hurriedly asked, why, Qingming, do you have a different opinion? No. Qingming shook his head and said, you are right. Then do you think the clan leader will agree to those people's proposal to take back the Sharingan? Uchiha Chihiro asked again. No, Qingming said firmly. Why? Uchiha Chihiro asked. Because if you can figure it out, the clan leader will definitely figure it out too, Qingming replied. After that, he no longer paid attention to the other party, but raised his hands, formed the character seal, and performed the ninjutsu, shadow clone technique. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 358 Huge Improvement. Bang! A cloud of chakra smoke dispersed. 9 figures appeared in the field. They looked exactly like Qingming, and they were all his shadow clones. In this way, including Qingming's original body, there were 10 Qingming in the field. Ignoring Uchiha Qingming, who was full of envy, Qingming directly assigned training tasks to 8 of the shadow clones. Wind style, wind blade, wind style, Sharingan, water style, water array wall, water style, water dragon bullet technique, water style, mist hidden technique, water style, big same bullet technique, Sharingan, skinny extraction technique. 8 skills, just enough for each person to practice one. After they all left, Qingming pointed at the last shadow clone and said to Uchiha Qingming, "If you want to spar with him next, practice with him." Hearing this, Uchiha Qingming glanced at the shadow clone and said helplessly, "Okay." Qingming could hear that there was a little reluctance in his words. Fortunately, the other party was a little self-aware and did not force him to practice with him. If that were the case, Qingming would have driven him away directly. After all, although the relationship between the two was not bad, it was not good enough for Qingming to give up his training plan and practice with him. Just now, he personally went down to fight with him, which had given him enough face. As for whether it was an advantage to fight with a shadow clone later? Indeed, in this process, his illusion sword technique and instant sword technique can be improved at a faster speed. But at the same time, the other party will also accumulate combat experience in this process. It can be said that this is a win-win choice, and no one owes anyone. Therefore, Qingming did not feel embarrassed at all about fighting with a shadow clone. What's more, this shadow clone has more than 8,000 chakras in its body, so Uchiha Qingming may not be his opponent. In this way, fighting with him in person is not much different. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming no longer thought about it. He waved his hand and said, "Okay, you two can find a place to spar." Hearing this, the shadow clone left first, and Uchiha Qingming said hello to him, and then followed the shadow clone to leave. Looking at the disappearing backs of the two, Qingming shook his head, went straight to an open space, found a place to sit down, and began to perform the palm immortal technique to strengthen his body. After more than half a month of strengthening, he can already feel the existence of the critical point of transformation. Now he just needs to accumulate strength and move in that direction. A ball of yang escape chakra entered his body, and Qingming closed his eyes. In a flash, nearly 2 weeks have passed. That night, in the room, when Qingming used the palm immortal technique to strengthen his body again, he could clearly feel that his body could not improve any further. An invisible shackle seemed to limit his growth, making it impossible for him to continue to improve himself. After a moment, Qingming opened his eyes and muttered, "It's about time." With this thought, Qingming skillfully opened his main Gekyo Sharingan, and then activated a pupil technique in his right eye, human control, to bless himself. Immediately, a feeling of satisfaction came to his mind, making Qingming want to indulge in it. But soon, he came back to his senses, quickly concentrated his mind, formed seals with his hands, and performed the ninjutsu, palm immortal technique. A strong yang release chakra entered his body, along his chakra meridians, and quickly entered various parts of his body. Qingming quickly urged the power of human control to guide this chakra to strengthen his body. The next moment, the invisible shackles that had previously blocked his continued evolution were shattered. Immediately, Qingming felt that an invisible restraint was broken, and his body felt a sense of relief from the inside out. Qingming did not waste time, and immediately gathered his mind and began to guide his body to transform in a more perfect direction. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. In the blink of an eye, half an hour passed. The transformation was finally completed, and Qingming opened his eyes, feeling comfortable all over, as if he had been soaking in a hot spring for more than half an hour. Qingming stood up, stretched his body, and quickly threw a few punches, bringing a gust of wind. Qingming felt that his strength had increased a little, and his speed had also become a little faster. In addition, his nerve reaction speed, now even without opening the Sharingan, he could see the wings of the flying mosquito in the room vibrating. Not only that, Qingming turned his palm, took out a kunai from the ninja bag on his waist, and then with a swish, he cut a hole in his left arm. Scarlet blood flowed out. Qingming frowned slightly, endured the pain, and just looked at the wound on his arm quietly. 1 second, 2 seconds. 1 minute, 2 minutes. When his physique attribute was raised from 14 points to 15 points, he had done a similar test. It took 7 or 8 minutes for the same wound to heal without any external force. But now, in less than 5 minutes, it healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Seeing this, Qingming smiled. Although this self-healing speed is not as fast as the unsealed healing of Senju Hashirama, there is no doubt that he has taken another step towards this goal. Qingming believes that as long as his physique attribute continues to improve, sooner or later, his self-healing ability will catch up with the other party, or even exceed it. Panel. With a thought, Qingming opened the proficiency panel. The next moment, the familiar light blue light screen appeared. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 12 years old. Constitution, 1718. Spirit, 19. Chakra, 65,200, 7,557,288,052. Bloodline, Sharingan, main Gekyo, 5,903, 50,000, 8,783. 50,000. Skills, Chakra refining technique, LV5, 1583, 5,000, LV5, 1973, 5,000. Wind style, Wind blade, LV6, 4725/10000, LV6, 8100/10000. Wind style, Recentrican, LV4, 1566, 2000, LV5, 2326, 5000. Water style, Water array wall, LV5, 334/5000, LV5, 3850, 5000. Water style, Water dragon bullet technique, LV5, 101/5000, LV5, 3600/5000. Water style, Mist hidden technique, LV1, 51/200, LV4, 1651/2000. Water style, Great shark bullet technique, LV1, 1/200, LV4, 701/2000. Shadow clone technique, LV4, 785/2000, LV4, 1535/2000. Chakra absorption technique, LV5, 4350/5000. Rasengan, LV6, 4865/10000, LV6, 8170/10000. Pole immortal technique, LV8, 6954/50000, LV8, 14154/50000. Chakra scalpel, LV5, 2200, 5000. Fine extraction technique, LV1, 1/200, LV4, 101/2000. Reflection of the heart technique, LV8, 1345, 50,000, LV8, 7105, 50,000. Illusion sword technique, LV6, 1200/10000, LV6, 4550 10,000. Instant sword technique, LV5, 540/5000, LV5, 4590/5000. Chakra control, LV5, 2780, 5000, LV5, 3230, 5000. Perfect skills. Qingming looked at the 18 points of constitution on the proficiency panel and said to himself, as expected, as his body transformed again, his constitution attribute increased a little bit without any surprise, from 17 points to 18 points, just a little worse than the 19 points of spirit attribute. At this time, his mind and body were more balanced than ever before. As a result, his gains from the improvement of his physique attribute this time far exceeded those of the past. First, the theoretical chakra limit was directly increased by 50,000 points, from the original 190,000 points to the current 240,000 points. And now, he has only tapped 88,052 points. From this, it can be foreseen that he will not have to worry about the problem of exhausting his potential for a long time. The second is the chakra recovery speed. Qingming felt it carefully and roughly estimated that his body can now recover about 146,000 points of chakra every day, which is a full increase of 30,000 points compared to a month ago. Thinking back to the last time, his physique attribute was increased from 16 points to 17 points, and it only increased by 20,000 points, but this time it increased by 30,000 points, which shows how much the improvement is. There is also the operation time of the chakra refining technique, which was directly increased by 2 hours this time, from the original 13 hours a day to the current 15 hours. In this way, his daily chakra recovery speed can be increased by another 4,000 points, and counting the 30,000 points increased by natural recovery, that is 34,000 points. Qingming would not waste so much newly added chakra. He scanned the skills on the panel. If possible, he would definitely use the chakra on the palm immortal technique and reflection heart technique. Unfortunately, these two skills are time-consuming to perform, and the chakra allocated to them has almost reached its limit. He would not have time to use more. So, after thinking about it, Qingming decided to divide the chakra into two parts, 14,000 points of which would be used for the practice of wind style, wind blade, and the other 20,000 points for wind style, Shuriken. In this way, the chakra allocated to wind style, wind blade, and wind style, Shuriken will be increased from 10,000 points and 140,000 points to 24,000 points and 34,000 points respectively. And these chakras can allow them to gain 280 points and 220 points of proficiency every day respectively. At present, his wind style, wind blade is at level 6, 8100/10000, and his wind style, Shuriken is at level 5, 2326, 5000. According to this progress, the former will be promoted to level 7 in about a week, and then in a few days, wind style, Shuriken will also be promoted. By then, he can start to develop flying ninjutsu. That's right, the reason why Qingming invested the 34,000 newly added chakras in these two skills is to meet the conditions for developing flying ninjutsu as soon as possible. Chapter 359, Turbulence resurfaces. In a flash, another 4 days passed. It was late July. This afternoon, still in the forest, Qingming sat cross-legged on a boulder, constantly performing the palm immortal technique to strengthen his body. Unfortunately, the effect was minimal. According to his estimation, after the physique attribute was raised to 18 points, it would take at least 1.5 months to improve and transform. If there was any delay in the middle, this time would be extended, unless this palm immortal technique could be further improved from LV8 or LV9. Otherwise, he could only grind slowly. With this thought, Qingming opened the proficiency panel and looked at the LV8, 15,234 50,000, palm immortal technique on it, and immediately gave up this naive idea. It was impossible for his palm immortal technique to upgrade in just 1.5 months. Hey, let's take it slow. With a sigh, Qingming planned to continue his practice. However, at this moment, a stream of chakra returned to his body. At the same time, a piece of practice experience and memory also emerged in his mind. Qingming immediately closed his eyes, silently digested these experiences and memories, and transformed them into the proficiency of the corresponding skills. After a moment, Qingming opened his eyes, and a touch of joy flashed in his eyes. Then, he raised his hands, completed the seal in an instant, and performed the ninjutsu, water style, mist hidden technique. A large amount of chakra poured out of his body, and in the blink of an eye, the area of 100 meters was turned into a vast expanse of white. Then, the white mist quickly disappeared, and the surrounding scenery reappeared, as if nothing had happened just now. This scene of free and easy control fully demonstrated that Qingming had a deep attainment in this technique. In fact, it was true. With the transformation of the practice experience and memory just now into proficiency, his water style, mist hidden technique successfully advanced to level 500, reaching the state of perfection. This made Qingming sweep away the depression in his heart just now, and he was full of hope for the future again. However, after the excitement, Qingming began to think about the distribution of chakra. Now that the water style, mist hidden technique has been perfected, the saved 5,000 chakra points must be redistributed. Qingming's eyes swept over several skills on the panel and finally fixed on the water style, great Samaritan technique. As an A-level ninjutsu with infinite uses, he hopes that it can be put into actual combat more quickly and integrated into his tactical system. Although it is now at level 4 and there is no big problem in using it, it is only against opponents with a weaker strength. If facing opponents of the same level, it is difficult to achieve too good an effect unless it is unexpected. Therefore, it is necessary to increase the investment appropriately and speed up its growth. With the investment of 5,000 chakra points, the proficiency that can be obtained every day will be increased from the original 80 points to 110 points. In this way, it can be promoted faster. Well, let's do it. Having made a decision, Qingming no longer thought about it, quickly gathered his mind, closed the panel, and then began his own practice. Time passed by minute. About an hour later, just when Qingming was immersed in his cultivation, a burst of hurried footsteps came from far away. Qingming's ears moved slightly, and then he opened his eyes. After a few breaths, a familiar figure appeared in front of him. Qingming looked at the person who came and said, "What happened, Chihiro?" That's right, the person who came was none other than Uchiha Chihiro. In the past period of time, he had almost handed over all his affairs to the other party. According to the time calculation, the other party should have just finished the task and was ready to rest. Why did he think of coming to him? And in such a hurry? Hearing Qingming's inquiry, Uchiha Chihiro took a deep breath and said, "Qingming, the Hidden Mist Village has taken action." Hearing this, Qingming's pupils shrank slightly, and he immediately sat up straight and said, "Tell me in detail." It's not his fault that he is so cautious, but this matter is too important. Although the Hidden Mist Village has not made any radical moves in the past month, Qingming knows that it was just a moment of calm before the storm. As the Third Ninja World War gradually draws to an end, the struggle between the various forces will inevitably enter a white-hot state. Before, the Hidden Mist Village had been slow to act, and it was obvious that they were preparing for this. Now, the other party suddenly took action, so he naturally had to treat it with caution. Just this afternoon, when the third team was out on patrol, they saw a team of mist ninjas wandering near the coast. After the two sides met, the other party quickly withdrew. After I came back, I learned about this situation and immediately asked other teams about their experiences. I found that since noon, patrol teams have seen traces of mist ninjas one after another. They are widely distributed throughout the entire defense line, attacking everywhere, as if they are exploring the loopholes in our defense. Hearing Qingming's inquiry, Uchiha Chihiro immediately told the situation encountered by the third team and the results of his investigation. Finally, he said with a slightly sad face, "Qingming, the situation seems a little bad. I feel that the mist ninjas are going to hold back a big wave." Yeah, Qingming nodded, agreeing with his idea. He even speculated that the Hidden Mist Village had negotiated a price with the Hidden Sand Village and signed a peace agreement. Next, the other party is likely to mobilize all their manpower to launch a full-scale attack on them. On the contrary, Konoha does not seem to be prepared to get too deeply entangled with the other party, at least not to go to war with them for the time being. Judging from the recent rumors, Qingming estimated that Konoha was planning to fight with the Sand Village first to completely decide the winner. Then, concentrate troops to deal with the Rock Village and the Mist Village. Judging from the memory of the previous life, even if Konoha was not at its peak in this battle, it was a small victory. The Sand Village eventually took the lead in signing a peace agreement with Konoha. Even later, in order to ensure the smooth end of the war, when the radical faction of the Rock Village attempted to disrupt the peace talks between the two sides, they took the initiative to come forward and destroy the other party's conspiracy. Although this was based on the interests of the Sand Village, the fact that the fourth Kazakage, Raza, took the initiative to come forward has already shown from the side that Konoha has a dominant position in the peace agreement signed with the Sand Village. Of course, this also laid the groundwork for the Sand Village to participate in Orochimaru's plan to collapse Konoha later. All kinds of thoughts kept flashing through his mind, and Qingming shook his head suddenly, throwing all the things that had not yet happened behind him. Now, he just wanted to know when the Kurigakure would launch an attack and how long his peaceful days would last. Just as he was thinking this, another person came here. He was a messenger Chunin, asking him and Uchiha Chihiro to go to the headquarters for a meeting immediately. Well, don't think about it this time. The peaceful days are over. Qingming was speechless and had to rush to the headquarters with Uchiha Chihiro. Chapter 360 Eagle's Beak Cliff. Qingming, Chihiro, this way, command center. In the conference room. As soon as Qingming entered the door, he heard someone greet him. Looking for the voice, he saw Uchiha Shisui sitting at the table. The other party's injuries had long been recovered, but the two sides were not in the same team, and the areas they were responsible for defending were also different. In addition, Uchiha Shisui took the task seriously and did everything himself, unlike him who often let his subordinates do it. Therefore, the two did not have many opportunities to communicate. On the other hand, Uchiha Chihiro, because of frequent missions, met him more often, and the relationship naturally became familiar. Therefore, without waiting for him to speak, Uchiha Qingming pushed him and walked over there. Qingming did not refuse and walked over. After sitting down, the three began to talk in a low voice. Of course, most of the time, it was Uchiha Qingming and Uchiha Shisu who talked, and Qingming was only responsible for listening, and basically did not express any opinions. Time passed by minute. Soon, half an hour passed. After everyone who was supposed to arrive had arrived, Kurosawa Shigeki came in. Unlike at the forward base, Kurosawa Shigeki was not as swift and decisive as Uchiha Kazuo. Before the meeting, he had to exchange pleasantries. Although Qingming felt that this was a waste of everyone's time, no one raised any objections, so he could only listen patiently. After nearly a quarter of an hour, Kurosawa Shigeki stopped talking nonsense, his expression became serious, and he got down to business. He said, "I think everyone has heard that since noon today, various patrol teams have discovered traces of the mist ninja." Immediately, there was a murmur below. Kurosawa Shigeki knocked on the table, and after the meeting room was quiet again, he continued, "This is true. In addition, I have another piece of news to tell you. Not only our northern defense line, but also the central and southern defense lines have also found traces of the mist ninja. What this means, I think everyone knows it, right?" Upon hearing this, a special Jonin immediately said, "It seems that the mist village has already digested the forward base and is preparing to launch a second attack." Yes, what Tachikawa Jonin said is that the mist village is doing preliminary reconnaissance, one person echoed. "That's right, we must strengthen the deployment of patrol teams as soon as possible and try to prevent their reconnaissance teams from approaching," another person said. For a while, the meeting room was noisy, and everyone was expressing their opinions. After a long time, Kurosawa Shigeki concluded, "I heard everything everyone said. In short, for the next period of time, when you carry out your mission, you must be careful and cautious, and beware of sudden attacks from the Mist Village." Well, the captain said that the Mist Village is particularly good at this, and everyone must be careful. Someone said so below. The others nodded again and again after hearing this. At this time, Kurosawa Naruki said again, "In order to prevent the sudden attack of the hidden Mist Village, the tasks of some teams will be changed. Next, I will tell you about the latest arrangements." Hearing this, Qingming immediately had a bad premonition in his heart. As expected, Kurosawa Naruki mentioned him first. Then he heard him say, "Qingming Jonin, your team will go to Eagle's Beak Cliff next. There's a stronghold there that needs to be heavily defended. This task is handed over to you. The Eagle's Beak Cliff stronghold, the northernmost stronghold of the northern defense line, is located in a remote area and is a protrusion of the continental shelf. Because it looks like a huge eagle's beak, it is called Eagle's Beak Cliff by the locals. That place extends directly into the sea. If it encounters an attack, it is very easy to be attacked from three sides. The last time and the time before that, the hidden mist village broke through the northern defense line, all from there. The danger can be imagined. However, Qingming knew that Kurosawa Naruki arranged him there not because he had a conflict with him, but to retaliate against him or something. Instead, he wanted to use his personal force to guard the weak point of the defense line. It had been breached twice. If it was breached again this time, I'm afraid Kurosawa Changshu would have to accept the investigation of the Anbu. After all, as the saying goes, there are times when it happens, but there are times when it happens again. If the hidden mist village breaches the same place 3 times in a row, then Kurosawa Changshu's ability will be questioned by the upper level. Of course, this has nothing to do with Qingming. The reason why he did not raise any objections was because he had enough confidence in his own strength. He firmly believed that even if the stronghold was lost, he would not die. So, he didn't care much. What's more, Kurosawa Changshu also promised to support him with 3 teams, a total of more than 50 ninjas, to guard the stronghold with him. So Qingming agreed. In this way, including his dozens of subordinates and the existing personnel in the stronghold, the number of ninjas there will exceed the 200 mark. This is unique in the entire northern defense line. From this, it can also be seen that Kurosawa Changshu is really worried that the hidden mist village will break through there again. Qingming shook his head and stopped thinking about it. After the meeting, he did not stay and immediately summoned his men and the 3 teams assigned to him by Kurosawa Changshu, and rushed to the Eagle's Beak Cliff in the north overnight. That night, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Qingming and others ran quickly and finally arrived at the target location in the middle of the night. Looking at the intact stronghold, Qingming secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that some bloody things would happen. For example, he had just arrived and the Kurigakure village had already occupied this place. In that case, there would definitely be a fierce battle. Now it seems that he thought too much? Yes, the Kurigakure village only started to explore today, and it is unknown how long it will take to launch an attack. How could they act tonight? Even if they successfully broke through here twice before, they dared not be so radical. Kurosawa Changshu could think of sending more people here, and they could naturally think of it. Therefore, they did not dare to take risks. If this is a trap, they will be in big trouble. However, the geographical location here is too favorable for the attacker. Therefore, even if there are risks, the hidden mist village will not give up. At most it will do more intelligence exploration. And this is one of the reasons why Kurosawa Changshu sent Qingming to guard. A series of footsteps sounded. In the front base, more than a dozen Konoha ninjas, led by a senior ninja, walked out of the base and came to them. Obviously, their arrival alarmed the people who were originally stationed here. Fortunately, Kurosawa Changshu had already delivered the relevant information here, so these people did not show too much nervousness. The handover between the two sides was very smooth. After verifying their identities, Qingming took control of the highest command here. Afterwards, he handed over all the matters in the base to Uchiha as usual, and returned to his residence to continue the practice that he had not completed today. Compared with managing other people, he still likes to practice more. This kind of real progress makes him unable to stop. Chapter 361 Mission. The next day. Early in the morning. When the first ray of sunlight shone through the window and onto his face, Qingming opened his eyes. A trace of confusion flashed across his eyes, but Qingming soon regained consciousness. He got up, washed, and went to the base cafeteria. After he had eaten something and filled his stomach, he went to find Uchiha. Uchiha, who was assigning tasks, saw him coming and said in surprise, "Captain, why are you here?" In front of others, he was still quite careful and did not call Qingming's name directly, but called him Captain. As for the reason for his surprise, it was very simple. Qingming had stopped asking about these things a long time ago, and now he suddenly came here, which really surprised him. Hearing the other party's inquiry, Qingming waved his hand and said, "You do yours, I'll come and see." Hearing this, Uchiha did not say much and immediately arranged tasks for these ninjas under his command. After all these people received their tasks and left, Uchiha came to him and said, "Qingming, is there anything I can do?" Obviously, he knew that Qingming could not just come here to take a look. In the past, Qingming would have wanted to spend every minute of his time, so how could he have the time to come and take a look? In fact, it was true. The reason why Qingming came here today was to go on a mission with him. The unusual movements of the hidden mist village still concerned him. He was not at ease if he did not investigate it himself. Therefore, he planned to follow him out to see if he could encounter the mist ninja. Once he did, with his strength, he could easily defeat the other party. At that time, once the LV-700 perfect realm of the Genjutsu Sharingan was opened, he would be able to read the other party's memory with a little effort. These people may not know any secret information, but some of the information on the surface was enough for him to get a glimpse of the plan of the hidden mist village. With this thought, Qingming said directly, "I will go on a mission with you today." What? Uchiha could not believe his ears. After Qingming told him about his plan, Uchiha realized that Qingming was not joking, so he decisively agreed. Are you kidding? With Qingming as a member of the team, his safety will be greatly improved. If he disagrees with this kind of thing, he is a fool. What's more, Qingming is the real commander of the stronghold, and no one can control where he goes. Soon, the two of them set off with a dozen Konoha ninjas on a small sailboat. Small sailboats like this can only travel in offshore waters and cannot go deep into the sea. Once they go deep, they will sink when encountering strong winds and waves. However, their mission does not need to go deep into the sea. They only need to patrol the surrounding waters to ensure that the mist ninja will not approach. Therefore, there is no need to worry about the wind and waves. To put it another way, at such a close distance, even if the boat capsizes, they can return on their own. As for not being able to tread water, please, the war has been going on for more than 2 years. Genin of this level have long died. The Genin who are still alive now have some abilities. and the village will not let the Sharingan who just graduated from the ninja school go to the front line. Therefore, the boat under their feet is at most to save some chakra for everyone, and no one really cares. Time passed by minute. Qingming stood at the bow, looking at the monotonous scenery on the sea around him, and finally shook his head and retracted his gaze. Captain, seeing this, Uchiha Qingming at the side opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. Qingming waved his hand and said, "I'll leave this to you. Call me if you find anything. I'm going to practice first." After that, he came to the stern, crossed his hands, formed the Ren seal, and performed the shadow clone technique. With a bang, a cloud of chakra smoke dispersed, and 9 figures appeared in the field. Qingming gave an order to one of the shadow clones, asking it to stay here, and then he took the other 8 shadow clones away. After his strength improved, he had fewer concerns about doing things. In the past, if there were so many people present, he would at most perform the palm immortal technique to strengthen his body, and would never split a shadow clone to practice. But now, he directly left a shadow clone as a signal for contact, and the main body left. Even so, no one dared to say anything. This is the convenience brought by strength. However, using shadow clones as a communication tool is still a little inconvenient, because the only way to notify him is to cancel the shadow clone technique and transmit the memory back. In this way, if the distance is close, it is okay, and he can arrive quickly. But once the distance is too far, by the time he arrives, the opportunity may be gone. Therefore, this drawback must be solved. There is actually a way, that is, to leave 2 shadow clones, or to leave the main body here directly. Let's not talk about the latter. He can still show the palm immortal technique. After all, using medical ninjutsu to strengthen and transform the body is not something shameful. But the reflection heart technique is not good. This technique can be performed in front of people, but Qingming will not perform it in front of people. They may not know this useless illusion that has been shelved by the Uchiha clan, and even if they know it, they can't recognize it. But it's better to be safe than sorry. If he is really recognized, combined with his outstanding performance, he may cause trouble. Therefore, in order to avoid trouble, it is better not to show it in front of others, especially when there are Uchiha clan ninjas in the field. As for leaving 2 shadow clones, one for delivering messages and the other for providing military support, this can solve the problem. But the key is that it is too wasteful of chakra. Indeed, Qingming now has a lot of chakra available every day, but there are also many skills that need to be practiced. He can't afford such a waste. He must not choose this. This time it's fine. The patrol range of their team is not very large. After receiving the memory message from the shadow clone, he will be able to arrive soon. But what about next time? What if it is farther away? Then he can only follow the team and waste time in vain. In this way, how can his skills improve quickly? At this thought, Qingming's idea a long time ago came to his mind, and he secretly said, maybe I should try to learn the Yamanaka clan's heart communication technique. A long time ago, when the Yamanaka clan ninjas performed this technique to communicate with him, he had this idea. However, there was no urgent need at that time, so he didn't pay much attention to it. Now that there is a need, he can study it. As the secret technique of the Yamanaka clan, the mind-connecting technique can even communicate with a certain person across dozens or hundreds of kilometers under the amplification of the barrier, and the effect is very strong. He doesn't ask to do it immediately, as long as he can communicate with his own shadow clone across a few kilometers. And with his current mental power, combined with the experience of being connected by the Yamanaka clan many times before, it is not difficult to spend some effort to develop it. Of course, the implementation process may be different from the Yamanaka clan's mind-connecting technique, but as long as the effect is achieved, it will be fine. However, having made a decision in his heart does not mean that he will try it immediately. Now, his main task is to concentrate on training wind style, wind blade to the maximum level, and then upgrade wind style, Shuriken. By then, with extra time and energy, he can study this secret technique of mind connecting while studying flying ninjutsu. Chapter 362 Nothing gained. Well, let's go here. A minute later, Qingming came to a rocky beach and nodded. This was the place he saw when he was observing the surroundings on the boat just now. It was just right for him to stay. Although with his current chakra, he could stand on the sea for 24 hours without any problem, but it was not as safe as standing on the ground. However, the reefs under his feet still needed a little rest, otherwise they would hurt. With this thought, Qingming said to a shadow clone next to him, "You come." Hearing this, the shadow clone did not waste any words. After a few leaps, he left the rocky beach and came to the sea not far away. Then, he made seals with his hands and instantly performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind blade. The next moment, a transparent wind blade about several meters long flew out and cut towards the reefs along the sea surface. Immediately, the reefs were like tofu, and were easily cut by the wind blade and separated from top to bottom. As the upper reefs slid down and fell into the sea, the flat cut surface was exposed below. After that, this shadow clone did the same thing, adjusted its position, and performed the wind style, wind blade several times in succession, finally leveling out a fairly spacious area. Qingming and the 8 shadow clones stood on it, feeling particularly at ease. Without wasting time, after finding a foothold, Qingming directly gave instructions to the 8 shadow clones, asking them to practice a skill each. The shadow clones inherited his temperament, and also did not waste words, and directly took the order and left. Then they were seen in the nearby sea area, thinking about and practicing the skills assigned to them by Qingming. After a while, various ninjutsu effects appeared on the surrounding sea surface. Seeing this scene, Qingming nodded with satisfaction. Afterwards, he no longer paid attention to these shadow clones, found a place by himself, sat cross-legged, and began his own practice. He alternately performed the palm immortal technique and the reflection heart technique, and Qingming silently strengthened his body and mind. This practice lasted for a whole morning. Before he knew it, the sun had already reached his head. The scorching sun shone on his body, making Qingming feel dry in the mouth. He temporarily stopped practicing, took the water bag beside him, and drank a big mouthful of water, then he let out a long breath. Standing up, Qingming looked at the endless sea, which was empty. Uchiha Qingming and others had long disappeared. However, since the shadow clone did not send back any news, it meant that they were not in danger. In this case, he would no longer pay too much attention to it. As for the traces of the mist ninja, he came out with a team this time to try his luck. Now only one morning has passed, and it is normal that he has not found any traces of the other party. Qingming is not in a hurry. Retracting his thoughts, Qingming moved his body, and when he felt that it was almost done, he took out a handkerchief from the ninja bag. After opening it, there were dozens of military pills inside. Qingming took out 3, stuffed them into his mouth, chewed them casually for a few times, and swallowed them. To be honest, the military pills did not taste very good. Although it can supplement the various nutrients needed by the human body, no ninja would choose to eat it if conditions permit. Qingming has become accustomed to this taste, so he can swallow it without changing his expression. Time passed by minute. After a while, Qingming felt that his physical strength began to recover, so he stopped wasting time and entered the state of cultivation again. In this way, time passed slowly, and the sun gradually moved from the middle to the west. Afternoon. Near dusk. In the sky, in the sunset, Uchiha Qingming and others drove a small boat back to this place. Before they got close, Qingming opened his eyes. Then, on the boat, the shadow clone responsible for communication exploded with a bang, turned into a ball of chakra smoke, and returned to Qingming's body. The next moment, a memory emerged in Qingming's mind. This is the memory of the shadow clone that day. Qingming closed his eyes and quickly browsed the information in it. After a while, he opened his eyes and shook his head. From the memory of the shadow clone, he knew that they had not seen a single living person, not to mention the ninjas from the hidden mist village, all day long. This made Qingming somewhat glad that he did not follow them, otherwise he would have wasted a whole day. The boat approached, and Qingming dodged and jumped onto the bow. Seeing him coming, Uchiha Qingming opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but before he could speak, Qingming interrupted him and said, "I already know the situation, let's go back now, okay?" Uchiha Qingming responded muffledly, and then ordered his men to turn the bow and sail towards the direction of the Eagle's Beak Cliff. At the same time, Qingming released the shadow clone technique. The next moment, a large amount of practice experience and memories poured into his mind, causing him to rub his temples. Then, he came to the stern, sat cross-legged, and began to digest those practice experiences and memories, turning them into a little bit of proficiency behind the corresponding skills. Of course, Qingming did not receive a whole day of memory infusion, but the practice experience and memory of the shadow clone in about an hour. This is also the frequency of digesting the practice results of the shadow clone during his normal practice. Only this kind of continuous iteration can maximize the effectiveness of the proficiency panel and practice skills more efficiently. Otherwise, the efficiency will be too low. Qingming once made an attempt, that is, after releasing the shadow clone, let it practice for a whole day, and then absorb the practice experience and memory at one time. In this way, although it is much more convenient, after converting it into proficiency, it is only a theoretical value, that is, 1/4 to 1/5 of the main body. When practicing with the help of the proficiency panel, the effect is not bad. Correspondingly, when he shortened this interval, the ratio immediately increased. Finally, after detailed testing and analysis, Qingming finally achieved a balance point in practice efficiency and time cost, that is, 1 hour interval. Without the assistance of the proficiency panel, 1 hour is almost the limit of his qualifications. During this time period, there is no obvious difference between practicing skills with a shadow clone and practicing with the main body. In this way, as long as he refreshes every hour at this frequency, he can timely convert the relevant practice experience and memory into proficiency, so that he has the latest understanding of the skill. And then he can practice with the highest efficiency. It is also because of this that he can practice so many skills at the same time and catch up with or even surpass those geniuses with mediocre qualifications. Chapter 363 Perfection. An hour later. It was getting dark. Qingming and the others returned to the Eagle Cliff. After that, they waited for about half an hour, and all the patrol teams returned to the base. Then, Qingming began to listen to their reports. According to their reports, Qingming knew that it was not only their team that did not encounter the Kurigakure ninjas today, but other teams also did not encounter them. Did the Kurigakure give up reconnaissance? Qingming was puzzled, so he called a Konoha ninja and asked him to contact Kurosawa Changshu to see what was going on over there. After hearing Qingming's order, the Konoha ninja bit his thumb without any hesitation, performed the summoning technique, and summoned an eagle-like summoning beast. Watching it fly into the sky, Qingming waited quietly. About half an hour later, he received a reply that there were still Kurigakure ninjas in other directions today, and Kurigakure did not give up reconnaissance. There must be something wrong when things are abnormal. The Eagle Cliff base is the weakest point of the entire northern defense line. Even if the Kurigakure knew that he was in charge, it would not even investigate. As one of the 5 major ninja villages, the Hidden Mist village has its own pride and cannot be frightened by him alone. There must be a trick here. Thinking this in his heart, Qingming directly ordered, "Everyone pay attention tonight, don't let your guard down, and double the number of people on duty." Everyone's face changed slightly when they heard it, but they still responded, "Yes, Captain." "Yeah." Seeing that they all listened, Qingming nodded, and then said, "Okay, you all go down and make arrangements." "Yes, Captain." Everyone responded again, and then hurried away. Looking at their backs, Qingming fell into deep thought. He didn't know whether the Hidden Mist village would launch a surprise attack, but it was always better to be prepared. However, it turned out that he seemed to have thought too much. Nothing happened last night. The next day, early in the morning, Qingming did not stay in the base, but followed the team again to perform patrol tasks. However, like yesterday, he still did not choose to follow the team, but left a shadow clone as a tool for communication. As for himself, he found a place again and continued his daily practice. The sun rises and sets. In the blink of an eye, another day has passed. They still got nothing after this day. Similarly, other teams did not see a single ghost. On the contrary, more and more mist ninjas were found near other strongholds on the defense line. This unusual situation made everyone anxious. Qingming once again issued an order to strengthen the defense at night, and then he returned to his room to practice. As the saying goes, when the enemy comes, the general will stop him, and when the water comes, the earth will cover it. Since you can't guess the intention of the Hidden Mist village, don't guess it. In this world where great power belongs to oneself, strength is the root of everything. In the face of absolute strength, any conspiracy is futile. Therefore, instead of worrying about gains and losses and guessing the opponent's plan, it is better to seize the time to practice and use every minute and every second to improve yourself. In this way, no matter what conspiracy the opponent has, he will have a better chance of winning. And his calmness also infected the other people in the stronghold. One by one, they were no longer as uneasy as before, and everyone was trying their best to do their own things. That night, nothing happened again. The third day. Early in the morning, after Qingming had breakfast, he left the base with Uchiha and his party again. When they reached the rocky beach, Uchiha Qingming said, "Qingming, are you going to practice again?" "Yes." Qingming nodded, raised his hands, formed the character seal, and performed the shadow clone technique, creating 9 shadow clones. After leaving one shadow clone as usual, he took the other 8 shadow clones out of the boat and ran towards the rocky beach. Looking at his back, Uchiha Qingming shook his head, and then ordered his subordinates to control the boat and sail to the patrol sea area. In a flash, time came to the afternoon. Qingming once again released the shadow clone technique to digest the practice experience and memory of the 8 shadow clones in the past hour. After a moment, he opened his eyes, a hint of joy flashed across his eyes, and he muttered, "Finally, it's perfect." That's right, after nearly a week of practice, his wind style, wind blade finally rose from level 6, 8,110,000, to the perfect level of level 7,000. At this time, Qingming felt that his understanding of this ninjutsu was unprecedentedly profound, and his control over the wind style chakra had also risen to a higher level. He raised his hands, completed the seal in an instant, and performed this technique. The next moment, a nearly 10-meter-long transparent wind blade appeared, then flew out quickly, sank into the reef, and cut a smooth cut on it. It can be seen that compared with level 6, the wind style, wind blade that has been promoted to the perfect level 7,000, has greatly improved both the attack speed and the attack strength. However, the concealment has been reduced a lot because the wind blade has increased in size. However, the only way to break the martial arts in the world is to be fast. As long as the flying speed of the wind blade is fast enough, it will be useless even if the enemy notices it. Because when you want to dodge, you've already been hit. Besides, it's not that he has no way to increase his concealment. As long as he appropriately reduces the input of chakra and shortens the length of the wind blade, he can naturally increase its concealment. With this thought, Qingming withdrew his hands with satisfaction. Then, he began to think about which skill to allocate the saved chakra after the perfection of wind style, wind blade. In the past period of time, Qingming allocated 24,000 points of chakra to wind style, wind blade every day. So much chakra, allocated to any skill, can greatly increase its growth rate, must be considered carefully. First, palm immortal technique and reflection heart technique can be ruled out. These 2 skills need to be performed by the main body personally, and are very time-consuming. He no longer has extra time to practice. Secondly, water style, water array wall, water style, water dragon bullet technique, Rasengan, phantom sword technique, instant sword technique, etc., can all be ruled out. Because their growth rate is already good, and there is no urgent need to improve, so there is no need to increase investment. So, after thinking about it, the only option is to allocate these chakras to wind style Rasen Shuriken. As his first S-level forbidden technique, it not only bears the heavy responsibility of his bottom line, but also is related to the development of flying ninjutsu in the future. Therefore, there is no skill more suitable than it. However, in this way, the chakra allocated to it every day will reach a terrifying 58,000 points, which is 22,000 points more than the 36,000 points of palm immortal technique that has been invested the most. With so much chakra, when practicing in the future, it must not be thrown all to one shadow clone. I am afraid that I have to divide it to practice at the same time. Just when Qingming was thinking about this, a memory suddenly appeared in his mind. Qingming's heart moved and quickly browsed. After a moment, his expression changed slightly, and he suddenly opened his eyes and looked in the direction where Uchiha Qingming and others left. Chapter 364 Final Encounter. Time went back to a few minutes ago. Just when Qingming closed his eyes to digest the experience and memory of the shadow clones, Uchiha Qingming suddenly found the traces of the mist ninja. That's right, it was suddenly, and it was not the kind of small boat that could only carry a few people for reconnaissance, but 4 large warships that could accommodate hundreds of people. Logically speaking, on this vast sea, let alone 4 large warships, even a few small boats could be spotted from a distance. But the fact is that it was not until these ships approached within 200 meters of them that someone was sharp-eyed and discovered the other party. After careful identification by Qingming's shadow clone, it was found that the way they hid the hull was the same as Zufang and others who blocked them more than a month ago, through a layer of ice crystals, refracting light, thus achieving optical invisibility. After that, Zufang's appearance also confirmed his guess. That's right, after confirming that Qingming and others had discovered them, Dozens of people came down from the 4 warships of the hidden mist village to attack them, and one of them was Zufeng. Seeing this scene, Qingming did not hesitate at all and immediately asked Uchiha and others to evacuate, while he stayed to stop the enemy. Uchiha and others knew that he was just a shadow clone, so they did not act pretentiously and agreed immediately. So, after Qingming jumped off the boat, they paddled the boat with all their strength and rushed in the direction they came from. On the other side, Qingming's shadow clone was strong, but it could not withstand the large number of enemies. If he wanted to delay enough time, he had to avoid getting hurt as much as possible. So, inevitably, Zufeng saw some clues. The other party was also decisive and immediately ordered several mist ninjas to defeat his shadow clone at the cost of serious injuries. This is how Qingming got his memory, on the rocky beach. After Qingming sorted out the memories in his mind, he immediately separated a shadow clone without any hesitation and ordered it to return to the base and summon everyone to prepare to defend against the enemy. At the same time, his body ran in the direction where Uchiha and others fled. Anyway, the other party has done a lot for him, and he doesn't mind helping the other party if he can. Qingming is very fast. About 10 minutes later, he saw Uchiha and others. Although there were shadow clones to block the enemy, they still couldn't escape the fate of being caught up by another group of mist ninjas. It can be seen that these people have abandoned the ship at some point and are now fighting with several mist ninjas. They fled and retreated, all was approaching the reef beach. Obviously, they also knew that only by joining forces with him could they save their lives. And Qingming did not disappoint them, and rushed over in just 10 minutes. The moment they saw him, all the Konoha ninjas were greatly encouraged, and the kunai they wielded in their hands became more powerful. On the contrary, when the mist ninjas saw Qingming coming on the waves, their expressions changed drastically, and they obviously knew Qingming's identity. However, with the orders from the upper level, they did not dare to retreat. Now, they can only hope that their own people will arrive as soon as possible. However, Qingming glanced at the distance and saw that the warships were still quite far away. So, he joined the battle without any hesitation. In just a moment, he used the instant sword technique to get close to one of them. Through these days of practice, his instant sword technique has been upgraded from level 5 to level 6, and is only one level away from perfection. Its effect is naturally not comparable to that of more than a month ago. The mist ninja who was approached by him, before the whole person could react, saw a flash of knife light, and the next moment his head flew high, and was beheaded by Qingming's sword. This scene really scared several mist ninjas. Seeing this, Qingming seized the opportunity and performed the Genjutsu Sharingan, controlling one of them in an instant. Then, a green light flashed on his body, and he performed the instant sword technique again to get close. Another mist ninja half predicted and half coincidentally blocked in front of the mist ninja controlled by the illusion. He raised the kunai in his hand and tried to block Qingming's attack. However, in his eyes, the blade swung by Qingming flashed with a sharp edge, and it turned from cutting to stabbing, aiming at his heart. At the critical moment, he quickly turned sideways and retracted his arm, trying to block the attack. However, the next moment, a flash of cold light flashed, and he only felt a slight pain in the front of his throat, and a strong feeling of suffocation surged into his brain. At the same time, he retracted his arm to block the kunai stabbed by Qingming, but blocked the air. The mist ninja looked at the bloody blade in Qingming's hand, staggered back a few steps, and his eyes were full of confusion. He opened his mouth to say something, but could only make a meaningless sound. Qingming looked at the other party expressionlessly and retracted the long sword. The reason why the other party made such a big mistake was not for any other reason, but because he performed the illusion sword technique while swinging the sword, which made him make a mistake in judgment, so he was hit by one blow. Otherwise, even if the other party was only a chunin, he would not be unable to take even one of his swords. It can only be said that the illusion sword technique is too useful for dealing with these chunins. Feeling the opponent's breath weakening rapidly, Qingming ignored it. The instant sword technique was performed, and his figure flashed again, and he came to the front of the mist ninja who had just been controlled by him with the illusion Sharingan. Swish, a flash of knife light passed by. Qingming swung the long sword in his hand and easily cut the opponent's throat. Killing 3 people in the blink of an eye, Qingming's ferocity shocked many mist ninjas, but the next moment, several mist ninjas gave up their opponents and rushed towards him. This is not because they are so brave and fearless, but if they let Qingming kill like this, all of them will die. Therefore, Among these people, the strongest ones all surrounded him. Seeing this scene, Qingming was not polite at all. He put away the long sword, made seals with both hands, and instantly performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind blade. This technique has just been perfected by him, so it is just right to test it. Swoosh! A huge transparent wind blade flew out and attacked a special Jonin in front of him. It was so fast that it arrived in an instant. Puff! The wind blade passed through the opponent's body. The next moment, it turned into a puddle of water. At the same time, not far away, the special Jonin emerged from the water. Qingming looked at the opponent and could clearly see the deep fear on his face. Obviously, it was a fluke for the opponent to use the water substitute in the extreme state just now. Only ninjas who have been fighting on the battlefield for many years can have such a reaction that is faster than their brains. Otherwise, with the opponent's strength, at the distance just now, with a flying speed of wind style, wind blade, it would be almost impossible for him to dodge it just by reaction. However, the fun of fighting lies in this. Winning and losing are not absolute. The weak can sometimes win by some tricks. It's just that Qingming doesn't like to be in a weak position, and he doesn't want to play some conspiracies and tricks. What he likes to do is actually to overwhelm others with force. With this thought, Qingming drew out his long sword, injected wind escape chakra into it, and with a flash of green light, he used the instant sword technique again. Swish! Qingming's figure appeared in front of the man, and the long sword in his hand swung out, hitting the opponent's neck. The man's reaction was not slow either, and he immediately raised the kunai in his hand to block the attack. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 365 Retreat. Ding! A crisp metal collision sound was heard. The longsword and kunai collided, splashing sparks. Just as the two were wrestling, several shurikens were thrown by other mist ninjas, attacking Qingming from the back and sides. Sensing the danger, Qingming immediately retracted his strength, dodged, left the spot, and got out of the attack range of the shuriken. However, these mist ninjas were relentless, and when they saw him dodge, they immediately threw shurikens again. Wait, not only shurikens, but also several kunai. Qingming's Sharingan rotated rapidly, and he saw several detonating tags on those kunai. Without any hesitation, he instantly locked onto these kunai, and then turned his palm, and the same number of kunai appeared between his fingers. The next moment, these kunai flew out and hit those kunai accurately, knocking them all away. As for those shurikens, Qingming dodged them the moment he threw the kunai. Boom boom boom! Kunai with detonating tags fell on the sea, exploding one after another. Dazzling flames suddenly appeared, and a large amount of seawater was lifted up, just like a heavy rain, sprinkled in all directions. Qingming's three Magatama Sharingans scanned the surroundings, and through the rain, locked on the several mist ninjas who attacked him. Then, his figure flashed, and the instant sword technique was performed, and he came to the nearest person, who was just a chunin. However, looking at his slightly immature face, it can be guessed that this person should also be a genius in the hidden mist village. Perhaps it was for this reason that he dared to join the ranks of those besieging him. However, he is just a genius, hasn't he killed enough? All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming swung his sword, and the phantom sword technique was ready to go, and at the moment the opponent reacted, it was decisively used. Kojima Mizuki only felt a flash in front of his eyes, and the angle of Qingming's sword seemed to have changed, and he was about to react accordingly. But at this moment, he suddenly thought of his companion who had just been killed by Qingming, and a flash of inspiration flashed through his mind. So, he suppressed his instincts and did not change his defensive action. Seeing this scene, Qingming narrowed his eyes and said to himself, "Something is going on." The next moment, the longsword and the kunai collided with each other, making a crisp sound of metal clashing. Feeling the terrifying force coming from the kunai, although Kojima Mizuki was pressed back, her eyes were particularly bright. At this moment, he felt that he had seen through Qingming's tricks and was very excited. With the help of his powerful mental power, Qingming keenly perceived the other party's state and wondered in his heart, "Isn't it just blocking an attack? Why are you so excited?" At this time, he didn't know that the other party actually thought he had seen through his illusion sword technique. If he knew, he would definitely sneer. If his illusion sword technique was so easy to see through, then how could those senior ninjas in the hidden mist village be restrained in front of him? Perhaps, this is the frog in the well. Compared to ordinary people, the person in front of him may be a genius, but compared to the real geniuses in the ninja world, he is still far behind. At least, in terms of self-awareness and positioning, he is far from a real genius. Perhaps, only after he experiences a tragic defeat, can he truly wake up, and then work hard from then on, or fall into depravity. And now is a perfect opportunity. However, Qingming has no intention of educating the other party. Just after he blocked his knife, he immediately stretched out his left hand, and a light blue high-density chakra ball condensed in his palm. Then, he pressed it forward with the palm. The extreme sense of crisis came to his mind, and before Kojima Mizuki could make any countermeasures, the Rasengan hit his abdomen. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out of Kojima Mizuki's mouth, and he retreated several steps in succession, temporarily pulling away from Qingming. However, this is not a good thing, and a flash of cold light appeared, and the longsword in Qingming's hand swung out for the second time, directly attacking the opponent's neck. Sensing the danger, Kojima Mizuki wanted to dodge, but it was too late. No, he roared in reluctance. However, the next moment, the sound stopped. Qingming retracted his long sword, shook off the blood on it, and did not look at the other party again. However, his indifference did not mean that others did not pay attention. Seeing Kojima Mizuki with half of his neck cut open and his breath rapidly weakening, a middle-aged mist ninja who had just thrown a kunai at him immediately lost control of his emotions and shouted loudly, "Mizuki!" The voice was like weeping and chilling. Obviously, there must be some kind of close relationship between the two. However, none of this mattered to Qingming. He just glanced at the other party and took advantage of the other party's out-of-control emotions to control the other party with a Jinjutsu Sharingan. Then, a kunai shot out and pierced into the other party's throat. Bang! The middle-aged mist ninja fell straight down, holding his throat, and sank into the sea. All this happened too fast. It was not until the two men died that the people who were preparing to besiege him woke up from their dreams. They looked at each other and then launched an attack together. However, compared with before, they were closer to each other, and they were obviously afraid of Qingming's surprise attack. However, even if they were so careful, it was still difficult to gain any advantage against Qingming. Under their joint attack, Qingming performed with ease. In a short while, two more people died in his hands. Finally, these mist ninjas could not hold on. Retreat! In the end, no one knew who shouted this, and all the mist ninjas in the field began to retreat towards the warships in the distance. Seeing this, Qingming ignored the others and found a mist ninja who was left behind and pounced on him. At first, there were still mist ninjas who wanted to help, but when Qingming killed another person, no one turned back. The mist ninja who was entangled by him looked at his teammates who were going away, and his eyes were full of despair. He wanted to fight to the death, but Qingming didn't give him this opportunity. After more than a dozen moves, Qingming found an opportunity and controlled the opponent with a magic, jail hanging technique. Then, with a flash body technique, he came behind the opponent, and then a hand knife fell down and chopped the opponent's neck. The next moment, the mist ninja rolled his eyes and fell into coma. Qingming grabbed the back of his collar to prevent him from falling into the sea. Swish! Uchiha and others came to his side. Qingming glanced at the crowd and found that only two people died, and nodded secretly. Although the strength of this group of mist ninjas is not as good as those intercepted by the shadow clones, it is not bad. They can only sacrifice two people in such a long time, which is already very good. Uchiha glanced at the figure in Qingming's hand and said, "Captain, what should we do next?" Hearing this, Qingming glanced at the four mist-hidden warships on the sea level in the distance, and said in a deep voice, "Go back first." Chapter 366 Intelligence and Preparation. More than half an hour later, Qingming and others returned to the Eagle's Beak Cliff. However, before they approached, a Konoha ninja appeared and stopped them. Obviously, the shadow clone who returned first had arranged personnel for defense. After verifying their identities, Qingming and others successfully returned to the base on the cliff. Qingming released the shadow clone technique and took in the shadow clone's memories during this period of time, and at the same time, he knew his arrangements very well. Then, he found that he had nothing to do. The things that should be done, including notifying the patrol team to return and contacting Kurosawa Changshu, were already done by the shadow clone, and he had nothing to do at all. In this case, Qingming stopped meddling in other people's business and turned his attention to the unconscious mist-hidden ninja beside him. He stood up and came to his side, and Qingming slapped him a few times to wake him up. Then, without waiting for him to react, he cast the Genjutsu, Sharingan, and began to guide him to recall the information related to this mission. Time passed by every second. Qingming carefully read the other party's memory, and after some effort, he finally figured out the plan and goal of the Kirigakure village this time. First of all, it can be confirmed that although the Kirigakure village has dispatched a lot of people this time, it is still just a tentative attack. However, the focus of the test is their Eagle Cliff stronghold. If they can successfully break through, then the tentative attack will immediately become a full-scale invasion. At that time, the reserve team belonging to the Kirigakure village will arrive immediately and join the battle. But if it doesn't go well, they will also retreat quickly to retain their strength and prepare for the next attack. As for why the other party did not conduct reconnaissance in advance and attack their stronghold, there are two reasons. One is that their stronghold is originally a place that is easy to attack and difficult to defend, and there is no need to make too much preparation. The second is that after two previous breakthroughs, the Kirigakure village has already had enough understanding of this place, and there is no need to continue reconnaissance. On the contrary, doing so can also use the strategy of tiring the enemy and catch them off guard. Just like in the past few days, traces of the Kirigakure reconnaissance troops have been found in other places on the defense line, but they are calm here. In this situation, even if there was no harassment from the Mist Ninja, everyone in the base was nervous. In this way, when the Mist Ninja really attacked, they would inevitably make mistakes. This was the plan of the hidden Mist village. Humph, what a wolf cry play! Qingming snorted coldly, raised his hand and performed the chakra absorption technique. In just a few seconds, he sucked out the chakra of the man under his palm, followed by spiritual energy and physical energy. The rapid loss of these two soon took his life. Qingming waved his hand and asked a Konoha ninja next to him to pull out his body, then sat back in the main seat and told the others the information he had just obtained and his thoughts so that they would have a clear idea. And just as he was talking, there was a knock on the door. Knock, 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 come in. The next moment, a Konoha chunin pushed the door open. Qingming glanced at the other party and found that it was the ninja sent by the shadow clone to contact Kurosawa Changshu. The other party also had a flying summoning beast that could quickly contact the headquarters. What's the matter? Qingming asked. Captain Kurosawa just sent a message that other places have also found the gathering of mist ninjas, but not many. He is now mobilizing troops to intercept the retreat of our mist ninjas. Let us delay as much time as possible, the Konoha chunin replied. Is that so? Qingming pondered for a moment and waved his hand, saying, Okay, I understand. You can go down. Yes, Captain, the man responded and left. After the door was closed, Qingming said to everyone, It seems that the information in that person's mind just now is correct. The enemy attacking us this time is indeed the main force of the Mist Ninja. Everyone, go down and prepare immediately and act according to the plan. Yes, Captain. Several people responded and left the meeting room quickly. Qingming silently closed his eyes and accumulated strength for the next battle. To be honest, he was not too worried about this battle. As long as the other party did not have the courage to go all out, it would be impossible to take this place. If it was just a test, he was sure to hold on. By then, when the support troops arrived, it would be the end of these mist ninjas. In a flash, another half an hour passed. The sun had already set in the sky, and the afterglow of the sunset sprinkled on the ground, leaving golden streaks. In more than an hour, the patrol teams had basically returned after receiving the order. Now, the number of Konoha ninjas gathered at the Eagle's Beak Cliff has exceeded 200. Although it is still not as many as the attacking mist ninjas, it is not a small number. Standing on the top of the cliff, looking at the four mist-hidden warships slowly approaching on the sea in the distance, Qingming was in a very calm mood. After a while, the mist-hidden warship stopped, and a dark group of people came down from it. At a rough glance, there were as many as 300 or 400 people. Seeing this, Qingming did not hesitate at all, and jumped from the top of the cliff. When he approached the sea, a layer of green light appeared on his body. The next moment, he stood steadily on the sea. This green light was not something else, but a wind escape chakra. Although he has not yet officially started to develop flying ninjutsu, it is still okay to take time to think about it. And this layer of green light was his casual work combined with the instant sword technique. With it, he could fall from a high altitude without being hurt. Just like now, jumping from such a high place on the top of the cliff, he can still land steadily. And this move of his undoubtedly shocked the mist ninjas in the distance. Before they could make any move, Qingming stopped on the sea surface, and the whole person was like a cannonball, running towards the other side, as if he was going to break through thousands of troops alone, with an indomitable momentum. This made the mist ninjas even more suspicious. But soon, as the high-level orders were issued, they immediately calmed down and rushed towards Qingming together. Seeing that the distance between the two sides was getting closer and closer, Qingming suddenly put away his long sword, quickly completed the seal with both hands, took a deep breath, and performed the ninjutsu wind escape, big breakthrough. A gust of wind blew out of his mouth, turning into a wind tornado, carrying countless seawater, and rushed towards the mist ninja team. Obviously, he had no intention of going into the enemy alone. Everything he had done before was just a trick to get close to the enemy and release this wind tornado. Unfortunately, when Hoshigaki Kisame performed the water style, exploding water wave, he did not have the opportunity to copy and learn it, otherwise he could perform this technique now and drown the enemy. However, the wind tornado is not bad. Think about the typhoon on the sea. Such a natural disaster is also not something that human power can contend with. And Qingming consumed more than 3,000 chakras at one time and performed the wind style, great breakthrough, which has this power, but the duration is slightly shorter. But this is still a trouble for the mist ninjas in front. That is, the reaction speed of ninjas is much stronger than that of ordinary people. They can escape or use various means to protect themselves. Otherwise, the casualties will definitely be very serious. But in this way, their formation will also be scattered. And this is exactly what Qingming wants. Almost at the moment he made a move, about 100 Konoha ninjas also came down from the cliff and ran towards this side. Qingming's idea was very simple. Since the enemy was numerous and powerful, and Eagle's Beak Cliff was surrounded by the sea on three sides and was difficult to defend, it would be better to rush in and kill them while they were still unstable, and then destroy their morale. Chapter 367 Kill. After a few breaths, the wind tornado dissipated, the strong wind stopped, and the two sides collided with each other, making a deafening cry of killing. A flash of green light appeared, and Qingming performed the instant sword technique, approached one of them, swung the long sword in his hand, and cut his throat before the other party could react. Then, he flashed and avoided a kunai stab from the side, and used the illusion sword technique with his backhand, cutting his carotid artery in the confused eyes of the attacker. Puff! A large amount of blood spurted out. Qingming did not stop moving, turned his head, looked at the mist-hidden ninja who rushed to the right, and performed the illusion Sharingan. In an instant, a touch of scarlet occupied the man's vision, and when he broke free from the influence of the illusion, there was already a long sword on his chest. Qingming drew out the long sword expressionlessly, stepped around the opponent, and killed another mist-hidden ninja. Because these mist ninjas were disrupted by his wind style, great breakthrough, they could only fight on their own for the time being, so he killed several of them in a short period of time. However, the mist ninja's reaction was not slow. When he killed the sixth person, a Junin finally came over. Although he was only a special Junin, he was enough to stop him for a moment. And at this moment, several mist ninjas came over. Among them, the strongest one was Zhu Feng, who had just fought with his shadow clone not long ago. As soon as he came, he gave him a warning. Then he heard a swoosh sound, and dense ice needles shot towards him, like flowers scattered by a fairy, covering an area around him. Qingming's Sharingan turned rapidly, and after confirming that he could not dodge, he immediately raised his hands and quickly formed seals. Finally, before the ice needles came, he performed the ninjutsu, water style, water array wall. A water wall suddenly rose up and blocked him in front of him. Those ice needles shot at the water wall and penetrated a distance, but they failed to penetrate the water wall and were finally stopped. However, this does not mean that Zhu Feng's attack was ineffective. At least he bought time for others to join forces. Then, at the moment when the water wall disappeared, two mist-hidden ninjas on the left and right sides almost simultaneously performed ninjutsu. Two water jets spurted out of their mouths and shot at Qingming in the middle. Not only that, the two mist-hidden ninjas in the back also threw the kunai in their hands and shot at the back of Qingming. In an instant, the three-sided attack took shape, and Qingming seemed to have no room to dodge. However, facing such a predicament, Qingming still did not panic at all. The sea surface under his feet suddenly sank, and a huge force appeared. Qingming jumped to a high altitude and avoided the attacks of the three people just right. However, this also made him lose his fulcrum, and the whole person became a living target. Such an opportunity, the surrounding mist-hidden ninjas would naturally not miss it. The first one was Zufeng. He used the ice escape ninjutsu again, condensing thence ice crystal needles and shooting them at Qingming. It can be seen that his purpose was not to kill Qingming, but to block his dodging space in this way. At the same time, the other four mist-hidden ninjas, either performing ninjutsu or throwing kunai and shuriken, attacked Qingming together. Seeing these attacks around him, Qingming's Sharingan rotated rapidly, taking all the attacks into his eyes and sorting them out according to their importance. Then, he formed a seal with one hand and instantly performed the ninjutsu, Fire Escape Dragon Fire Jutsu. A flame spurted out of his mouth and turned into a fire dragon, rushing forward. This time, not only did it melt a large piece of ice crystal needles shot from the front, but it also forced Zufeng to return to defense. Ignoring Zufeng, who was condensing an ice wall in front of him, Qingming exerted force on his waist and abdomen, twisted his body into an incredible angle, and avoided the ninjutsu attacks of the two mist-hidden ninjas by a hair's breadth. As for the last kunai and shuriken, there was a sound of ding ding ding. Qingming waved a long sword in his hand and blocked them all accurately. At this point, the crisis was resolved. Although it was a long story, it actually happened in an instant. Qingming landed on the sea with both feet, and launched a counterattack the next moment. He first used an instant illusion, Sharingan, to control a person on the site and attract another mist-hidden ninja to come to the rescue. At this time, he used instant sword technique to attack another person. This person had no time to dodge and could only fight him hard. Ding ding dang dang, the long sword and kunai collided rapidly, making a series of sounds. The two people entangled with each other, and the other mist-hidden ninja saw this and did not dare to throw ninja tools or use ninjutsu to attack at will. Seeing that the mist-hidden ninja was completely suppressed by Qingming, they had no choice but to join in. Qingming fought against many people alone, although he was slightly at a disadvantage, but he was not afraid at all. Or in other words, this was the result he wanted. Because only in close combat can he find opportunities better. The Sharingan rotated rapidly, and the illusion sword technique and instant sword technique were frequently used. Under the siege of 5 Kurigakure Jonins, Qingming dodged and dodged the attacks while counterattacking from time to time. For a while, neither side could do anything to the other. However, this was only temporary. As time went on, Qingming gradually mastered the behavior habits of several people, and the opportunity appeared. At a certain moment, he suddenly swung a knife and blocked the attack of a Kurigakure Jonin in front of him, and then he lowered his body and avoided a kunai stab from the side one step ahead. And it was at this moment that the attacks of several Kurigakure Jonins did not connect. The next moment, Qingming stretched out his left hand, and the Rasengan condensed into shape. A light blue high-density chakra ball appeared and was pressed by him to the chest of a Kurigakure Jonin on the side. Sensing the danger, this person wanted to dodge. However, Qingming did not give him this opportunity at all. The moment their eyes crossed, he cast the illusion Sharingan. Immediately, the man froze. Seeing this, a Kurigakure Jonin next to him immediately swung the kunai in his hand and stabbed Qingming's neck, trying to force him to give up the attack. But Qingming seemed to have anticipated his reaction. Almost at the moment he swung the kunai, his body leaned to one side. Swish, the sound of a sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood was heard. A little blood splattered. Although Qingming reacted in time and avoided the vital part of his neck, he still inevitably had a shallow scar on his shoulder. However, it was worth it. The chakra ball in his left palm hit the chest of the Kurigakure Jonin directly, knocking him away. Puff, a mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth, and his breath instantly wilted. Obviously he had lost his fighting power. Chapter 368, Entanglement. After these days of practice, Qingming's Rasengan has reached the peak of level 6, and is only one step away from level 7. Therefore, although the chakra ball he just condensed is not big, it actually has gathered more than 500 points of chakra. The lethality caused by so much chakra bursting out at once can be imagined. Akabe, looking at Matsushita Akeo, who was spurting blood, another Kurigakure Jonin shouted. However, Matsushita Akeo was no longer able to respond to him. Without any hesitation, after a Rasengan seriously injured the opponent, Qingming did not hesitate at all. A green light flashed on his body, and he immediately performed the instant sword technique and came to his side. Then, the longsword in his hand swung out and cut the opponent's carotid artery. At this point, the opponent completely lost his life. Swish, shaking off the blood on the blade, Qingming looked back at the remaining 4 Kurigakure Junin, his eyes full of indifference. However, the 4 mist hidden ninjas were not frightened by him. They looked at each other and immediately used their own methods to attack him again. Seeing this, Qingming did not say anything and immediately swung his sword to meet him. Ding ding dang dang, the rapid sound of metal collision rang out again. Qingming, with one sword, faced the 4 mist hidden ninjas and was not at all inferior. No, he even had the upper hand. Moreover, as time went on, this sign became more and more obvious. At a certain moment, the sound of a sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood rang out. Swish! One of the mist hidden ninjas was unable to dodge and was slashed across the chest by Qingming's sword, leaving a deep scar. The blood dripped down, and the battle between the few people stopped again. At this time, Zhu Fang looked at Qingming with fear. For some reason, he always felt that Qingming's strength seemed to have improved a lot compared to more than a month ago. Indeed, Qingming's age is there, and it is the stage of rapid growth in strength, but is this growth too fast? It's totally unreasonable. In fact, it is true. With the help of the proficiency panel, more than a month is completely equivalent to several months of hard training for Qingming. Not to mention his skills that are generally upgraded by 1 level, the 2 points of improvement in the physique attribute alone are enough to make him reborn. You know, the improvement of the physique attribute is not only to improve his potential and chakra recovery speed. At the same time, it is also an improvement in the various qualities of his body. In this way, with the blessing of the Sharingan, the improvement is even greater. This is why Zhu Fang feels that his strength has increased. After a few breaths of confrontation, Zhu Fang and others launched an attack again. However, this time they no longer fight with Qingming in close combat, but keep a distance and want to attack Qingming from a distance. Qingming naturally does not allow this, so he wants to step forward to stop him. However, Zhu Fang jumped out first and blocked him. An ice knife condensed in his palm and killed Qingming directly. Qingming had no choice but to fight with him. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the other 3 mist hidden ninjas distanced themselves from him. Then, one of them formed seals with his hands, opened his mouth slightly, and emitted a barely detectable sound wave that rushed straight to Qingming's ears. Qingming trembled slightly when he heard the sound, and the 3 megatoma in his pupils seemed to be affected, shaking irregularly. The man was performing an extremely rare auditory illusion. Qingming didn't check it for a moment and was actually hit directly. Fortunately, his mental strength was strong enough to get rid of the influence of the illusion almost instantly. However, the next moment, what came into his eyes was a huge water dragon. Qingming was very familiar with this technique. It was the B-level ninjutsu, water-style, water dragon bullet technique. Obviously, this was the work of another mist-hidden ninja. Looking at the water dragon rushing towards him, Qingming did not hesitate at all, and jumped back several times in succession, suddenly pulling away from him. Boom! The water dragon bombarded the sea in front of him, raising several meters high waves, hitting Qingming. Not only that, the surrounding sea surface was also up and down, making Qingming unstable. Just at this time, the 3rd mist-hidden ninja took action. He opened his mouth and spit out an extremely sharp water arrow, which shot straight at Qingming's heart. Sensing the danger, Qingming no longer paid attention to the waves, stabilized his body, formed seals with both hands, and quickly performed the ninjutsu, water-style, Great Samiden Jutsu. It has been more than a month since he learned this technique from Uchiha Qingming. Now its level has been raised to the top of LV4, only 1 step away from LV5. At this level, if it is used for attack, it may not be enough, but it is more than enough for defense. Not to mention, facing this kind of direct attack, it is even easier. Of course, in order to prevent making the same mistake as Uchiha Qingming, Qingming had observed it through the Sharingan early. The water arrow released by the last mist-hidden ninja was 100% a ninjutsu, not some messy physical technique. In this way, he didn't have to worry. After the ninjutsu was performed, a huge shark missile quickly formed in front of him, and then rushed towards the water arrow. The moment the 2 sides came into contact, the shark seemed to come alive and swallow the water arrow in one gulp. Then, its body size increased greatly, turning into an even larger shark, and continued to pounce on the mist-hidden ninja in front. Seeing this, the man's eyes widened, and he was stunned for a moment, then dodged to the side. Otherwise, how can it be said that the level 5 water style, big same bullet technique is more defensive than offensive? Obviously, the mist hidden ninja in front of him made a momentary mistake, but he still didn't attack the opponent, allowing him to dodge. Seeing this, Qingming shook his head secretly. But he was not too disappointed, because this was already expected by him, and he was also prepared for it. Then, we saw that at the moment when the opponent dodged the shark's attack, a layer of green light appeared on Qingming's body. This green light merged him and the long sword into one, which was the sign before the instant sword technique was performed. However, at this moment, Zhu Feng, who had dodged in advance when he was affected by the illusion and made room for his teammate's ninjutsu attack, suddenly rushed out of the sea. He was seen standing on the head of an ice crystal dragon, controlling the dragon, stretching out his claws and grabbing him directly. It must be said that the opponent grasped the timing very well. If he continued to perform the instant sword technique and approached the mist-hidden ninja at this time, he would inevitably be touched by the dragon's claws. At that time, even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. A strong sense of crisis filled his heart, and Qingming's Sharingan was fully operational. Finally, at the critical moment, he adjusted the direction of the instant sword technique and dodged the attack of the dragon's claws at a very fast speed. Taking this opportunity, the two mist-hidden ninjas who had previously performed illusion and water-style, water dragon bullet technique threw the kunai in their hands. Whoosh whoosh, a subtle sound of breaking through the air was heard. Qingming's ears moved slightly, and his sight moved to the direction where the kunai came from. At the same time, he flipped his palm and took out 2 kunai from his ninja tool bag, and then threw them out without hesitation. Ding ding, 2 crisp metal collision sounds were heard, and the 4 kunai collided in the air, bursting out sparks, and then flew in one direction. Qingming didn't have the extra thoughts to care about these, because the next attack of the ice dragon had already arrived. He saw that the ice dragon opened its mouth wide, and a white mist spewed out of its mouth, like a dragon's breath, rushing towards him. It can be predicted that once hit by this cold mist, even if his body can withstand this low temperature, he will be frozen. Fortunately, the two sides had fought before, and Qingming also knew some of the abilities of the ice dragon condensed by the other party. Therefore, at the moment when the other party spewed out a cold mist, he had already formed a seal with one hand and performed the ninjutsu, fire style, dragon fire technique. Just like before, the fire dragon and the cold mist met, not only steaming each other dry, but also with a little spare energy to continue burning towards the ice dragon. However, Qingming knew that this damage could not do anything to the other party. Therefore, the next step must be taken. With this thought, Qingming looked around. It can be seen that after the initial panic, the group of fog ninjas have reorganized their formation and gradually suppressed the Konoha ninjas with their numerical advantage. If they continue like this, what awaits them must be being divided and surrounded. We have to retreat, Qingming made up his mind. So, the next moment, he gave up the dodging action, but performed the instant sword technique and took the initiative to approach the ice dragon. Zzzz, suddenly, a harsh friction sound was heard. An indescribable power came from Qingming. No, to be more precise, it came from the palm of his left hand. Chapter 369, Hidden Hand. What is this? Zhu Feng looked at Qingming's left palm, and his pupils suddenly dilated. He saw a huge shuriken condensed by chakra, spinning rapidly there, tearing the surrounding air and bringing up a whistling sound. This familiar scene made Zhu Feng's hair stand on end. However, it was too late to retreat at this time. Gritting his teeth, Zhu Feng controlled the ice crystal dragon to extend its claws and grabbed Qingming directly. Qingming was also unceremonious, and stretched out his left hand and collided with the dragon's claw. Compared with the huge dragon's claw, Qingming's palm was not even as big as the opponent's fingernail. However, this exaggerated gap did not make Qingming retreat half a step. There was no other reason. At the moment when the two sides came into contact, the wind-style, spiral shuriken entrenched in Qingming's palm began to work. That's right, Qingming performed not other ninjutsu, but the S-level forbidden technique, wind-style, spiral shuriken. The huge shuriken exploded and turned into countless chakra needles that were difficult to detect with the naked eye, piercing through the ice dragon's giant claw. Tiny ice chips fell, and the dragon claw disappeared in the blink of an eye. This is not the end. The wind-style, shuriken continued to move forward and finally touched the body of the ice dragon, leaving a huge hole in it in an instant. Zhu Feng continued to inject chakra into the ice dragon's body, trying to repair the gap. However, the gap was too large, and the internal ninjutsu structure had been destroyed and could not be repaired at all. In the end, the ice dragon wailed and could only shatter. Qingming dodged a few times, opened the distance, and avoided the large amount of ice falling from the sky. Ignoring Zhu Feng and the other 3 mist-hidden ninjas, Qingming swept across the battlefield and shouted directly, "Retreat!" Hearing this, the well-prepared Konoha ninjas immediately approached each other and retreated towards the Eagle's Beak cliff according to the predetermined plan. The mist-hidden ninjas were caught off guard by the scene. Except for a few people with stronger strength and faster reactions who stopped their opponents, the rest of them failed to stop their opponents. Once they gather together, it will not be so easy to deal with them. However, the Kurigakure ninjas did not want to give up so easily. So, someone immediately ordered a pursuit. However, before they ran far, they were blocked by the Konoha ninjas who stayed on the Eagle's Beak cliff. They saw dense kunai falling from the sky and shooting at them, mixed with a lot of detonating tags, forcing them to dodge. In addition, some ninjutsu and illusions performed by some Konoha ninjas also caused a lot of trouble for their pursuit. After one round of attacks, seeing that they were about to launch a second round of attacks, a Kurigakure ninja could not bear it anymore, and immediately raised his hands, formed a seal and performed a ninjutsu, water-style, Kurigakure technique. In the blink of an eye, the surroundings were covered by fog. In this way, the Konoha ninjas on the top of the cliff did not dare to act casually. On the contrary, the ninjas of the Hidden Mist village have to deal with thick fog all year round due to the geographical environment of the village, and the water-style, Hidden Mist technique is one of the iconic ninjutsu of the Hidden Mist village. Therefore, even if everyone is not proficient in the silent killing technique, they can distinguish the enemy's traces in the thick fog through some subtle movements. In this way, the disadvantage can be completely turned into an advantage. Just when the Hidden Mist senior ninja was about to order a free hunt, a gust of wind suddenly blew away the fog in the blink of an eye. He looked closely and saw Qingming slowly close his mouth and put down his left hand. Obviously, the gust of wind just now was his masterpiece. The thick fog that blocked the view disappeared, and the Konoha ninjas who had just slowed down their escape speed immediately sped up again. Qingming glanced at them and basically confirmed that it should be no problem for them to escape back to Eagle's Beak Cliff, so he ignored them. Next, he had to run away. With this thought, Qingming's body flashed with green light, and he planned to perform the instant sword technique to leave. However, the next moment, an invisible sound wave rushed into his ears again, causing him to stagger and almost fall. This was the sound illusion he had just encountered not long ago. However, this time it was much stronger than the last time. Qingming forced himself to be alert, instantly dispelling the mental power and chakra that invaded his mind, and turned to look at a mist ninja not far away. It was the other party who was casting an illusion. However, this person seemed to be worried about being controlled by him using the Sharingan illusion, so although he released an illusion at him, he did not look at him at all. Helplessly, Qingming could only rush towards the other party. Swish swish, two familiar figures suddenly appeared and protected this person. They were the two mist ninjas who had fought with him before. Qingming looked at them, without stopping, and continued to run forward. However, before he could get close, the two people raised their hands at the same time to form seals and cast a ninjutsu, water-style, water wave. The next moment, two streams of water like waterfalls spurted out of their mouths and shot straight at Qingming. Seeing this, Qingming's expression remained unchanged. He raised his hands, quickly completed the seal, and once again performed the ninjutsu, water-style, Great Samiden Jutsu. A giant shark appeared, swallowed all the water into its stomach, and its body size increased at a speed visible to the naked eye, and then rushed towards the two people with unparalleled power. Seeing this, the two immediately stopped the spell and dodged to both sides. Boom! The shark bombarded the sea, raising a huge wave of more than 10 meters high, but no one was hurt. That's right, including the mist-hidden ninja who was standing behind the two just now, he was not hurt. Then, I don't know when, in front of him, there was an ice wall of more than 10 meters high, just blocking the impact of the huge waves. There is no doubt that this was Zhu Feng's move. Looking at the four people who cooperated tacitly, Qingming slowed down his steps, turned his body suddenly 90 degrees, and ran straight towards the direction of the Eagle's Beak Cliff. He didn't have to kill the Mist Village Jonin who was good at auditory illusions. As long as the other party didn't hinder him from leaving, it would be fine to let him go. It just so happened that his action just now had attracted everyone's attention. Now was a good opportunity to leave. However, before he ran 2 steps, his footsteps suddenly stopped. The next moment, he saw a blue barrier suddenly appearing in front of him, with ripples on it, as if it could be broken with a poke. However, Qingming knew that it was just an illusion. This barrier was not a simple thing at all. If he was not mistaken, it should be a barrier. Looking at the left and right sides and the back, a barrier also arose at some point. Then, these 4 barriers connected to each other, and then closed up and down, and finally formed a cubic cage with a length, width and height of about 30 meters. Swish, swish, swish 4 figures appeared. They were wearing black robes and masks. They were 4 Anbu ninjas from the Mist Village. The 4 Mist Village Anbu each occupied a corner of the cage, without saying a word, and just quietly maintained the operation of the barrier. It may sound long, but it actually happened in an instant, leaving Qingming no time to escape, otherwise he would not have remained indifferent. From this, it can be seen that the 4 Kurigakure Anbu must have been well prepared. Otherwise, how could they have grasped the timing so well? Qingming really didn't expect that Kurigakure would be so well prepared for a mere tentative attack. It was even as if they were deliberately targeting him. Chapter 370 No Chance. Qingming's feeling was correct. The Hidden Mist Village was indeed targeting him. Although the Hidden Mist Village did not send anyone to investigate the situation at Eagle's Beak Cliff in advance for this sudden attack, they learned from a spy that the person in charge of guarding here was him. The Hidden Mist Village had experienced his strength more than once and was very clear about how difficult he was to deal with. They knew that it would be difficult to take him down with ordinary means. So, they made preparations for this time. At present, the 4 mist ceiling formation performed by the 4 Hidden Mist Anbu was specially prepared for him. This time, the Hidden Mist Village's goal was not so much to capture the Eagle's Beak Cliff stronghold as to capture him. That's right. His importance now is equivalent to capturing a Konoha stronghold and creating an opportunity for a full-scale invasion for the village. Originally, they planned to lure him out when attacking the Eagle's Beak Cliff stronghold, and then besiege and kill him. Unexpectedly, before the offensive and defensive battle began, he actually appeared first. So, the 4 Hidden Mist Anbu took decisive action and trapped him here. Seeing him trapped, Uchiha Qingming stopped first and shouted, "Captain!" As he spoke, he was about to return and attack the Kurigakure Anbu who maintained the barrier. Seeing this, some other Konoha ninjas hesitated for a moment and stopped, ready to follow. Whether they were willing to admit it or not, Qingming was the backbone of everyone. Once Qingming fell here, they would not be able to defend this stronghold. Therefore, no matter what, Qingming could not be allowed to fight alone. However, seeing their reactions, Qingming frowned and shouted, "Don't come over." Hearing this, everyone stopped in their tracks because of his power. At the same time, the Kurigakure ninjas also quickly stepped forward and blocked him and the Konoha ninjas, blocking the way for Uchiha Qingming and others to return for help. At this time, even if they wanted to help Qingming, they couldn't do it. Qingming didn't care much about this and continued to shout, "You go, don't worry about me." Hearing this, the Konoha ninjas were still a little hesitant. The 4 members of the Kurigakure Anbu had already taken action. They activated another change in the seal formation, causing white mist to float inside. At first, the white mist was very light, just like the mist in the mountains in the morning. Although it affected the vision, it was still possible to see the surroundings clearly. But soon, the white mist became thicker and thicker, and it was impossible to see one's hand in front of one's face. This is why this formation is called the 4 mist ceiling formation. Obviously, the Kurigakure village was very thoughtful, fearing that ordinary barriers could not stop Qingming's Sharingan, so they specially made such a ceiling formation. In this way, it can not only interfere with Qingming's perception inside, but also make him lose the help of Sharingan. In this regard, Qingming can only say that you must not underestimate the foundation of any major ninja village. Once your details are known, you will be targeted endlessly. Fortunately, his biggest trump card has not been exposed yet. However, before that, he still wants to test whether he can break this cage with his own ability. With this thought, Qingming formed seals with his hands and instantly performed the ninjutsu, wind style, great breakthrough. He took a deep breath, his chest bulged high, and then he blew it out violently. The next moment, the wind whistled, and a hurricane mixed with wind-style chakra gushed out of his mouth, blowing towards the white fog in front. In the blink of an eye, the thick fog was blown away. Qingming found the position of the barrier, changed his hand seals, and a stream of water-style chakra was condensed, and then he performed the ninjutsu, water-style, water dragon bullets technique. Roar! A giant water dragon appeared, roared, and rushed straight to the water curtain barrier in front. However, the seemingly thin layer of water curtain was as hard as steel, and the water dragon had it, but it didn't shake it at all. Seeing this scene, Qingming's expression did not change. He raised his hands and formed seals again, this time performing a ninjutsu with stronger attack power and better at breaking through this hard defense. Wind style, wind blade, Qingming silently chanted in his heart, and a giant wind blade more than 10 meters long appeared between his palms. As soon as it appeared, it flew towards the barrier at a speed that was difficult to see with the naked eye. However, at the moment when the wind blade came into contact with the barrier, which was as hard as iron before, suddenly became unusually soft. The wind blade cut into it, sinking into a large piece, causing a very obvious bulge on the surface of the barrier. However, that was all. The wind blade only lasted for less than a breath before it completely dissipated. This method of using softness to overcome hardness made Qingming frown slightly. Looking at the white mist that was about to gather again around him, Qingming did not waste time, raised his hands again to form seals, opened his mouth, and performed a ninjutsu, fire-style, dragon fire jutsu. A pillar of fire spewed out of his mouth, turned into a dragon, and roared towards the barrier. Bang! The fire dragon hit the barrier, but failed to change the barrier at all, and the expected scene of water and fire colliding did not appear. In just a moment, the fire dragon turned into a rain of fire that spread all over the sky. Seeing this scene, Qingming murmured in a low voice, "Sure enough, the sealing technique is the most powerful force in this world. This is completely unreasonable, although he still has a move of wind style, Shuriken. It has not been tested, it should not be tested in the current situation. Although wind style, Shuriken is strong, it is also a physical attack. Facing the sealing technique that seems to be a rule, it is likely to have no effect." As for the last blocking battle, he was able to break through Zhu Fang's ice crystal cage with this move. That was only because the ice prison was just a ninjutsu of Zhu Fang, not a sealing technique, nor a barrier ninjutsu. In this way, it is normal for him to break it. Now it is different. This 4-mist sealing array is a serious sealing technique, which cannot be broken by ordinary means. Unless you use absolute strength, it is impossible to break it. All kinds of thoughts flashed through Qingming's mind. At this moment, the white mist that had just been blown away by his wind style, great breakthrough gathered again and blocked his sight again. Qingming looked at the white surroundings and said to himself, "This is just right." Then, he thought, and the 3 Magatama in his pupils suddenly stretched and merged, and finally turned into the shape of a black sun, and surprisingly opened the main Gekyo Sharingan. Then, the pupil technique Heaven's Guard in his left eye was activated, and Qingming's feet sank into the sea and directly passed through the barrier below. During this period, there was no obstruction. Sure enough, Heaven's Guard is an invincible existence, Qingming sighed in his heart, and then the whole person quickly approached a Kurigakure Anbu from below. Finally, after approaching within 1 meter of the opponent, he released Heaven's Guard and closed the main Gekyo Sharingan at the same time. The Kurigakure Anbu was very vigilant and discovered his existence almost at the moment he released Heaven's Guard. However, even so, it was still a little late. Bang! Qingming broke out of the water and instantly grabbed his neck. The chakra absorption technique was activated, and his chakra was sucked out in the blink of an eye. After that, Qingming slightly exerted force with his palm, and with a click, he broke the opponent's neck. That's right, Qingming did things so simply and directly. Since he was sure that conventional means could not escape, he would directly use his trump card and not give the opponent a chance to use other means. As the saying goes, the longer the night, the more dreams there are. Since the opponent trapped him on purpose, there must be subsequent means. Qingming didn't want to try to see if he could withstand it. So, it's better to escape as soon as possible. Chapter 371 Counterattack. Outside, everyone watched Qingming, who was inside the barrier, performing various ninjutsu to attack the barrier but to no avail, and their reactions varied. Uchiha Qingming and other Konoha ninjas were all nervous, with serious expressions on their faces, while Zhu Fang and other mist ninjas in the field were surprised. At the same time, a sense of relief was revealed in the depths of their eyes. Finally, When the white mist filled the barrier again and blocked everyone's vision, Zhu Fang and several other mist-hidden ninjas who had just fought with Qingming retracted their gazes and looked at Uchiha Qingming and others. Then, without any nonsense, they directly ordered, "Kill." Uchiha Qingming and others stopped during their escape, and now they were approached by the mist-hidden ninjas. It was not easy to escape from the battle. Therefore, it can be foreseen that there will be a fierce fight next. However, just as the mist-hidden ninjas were preparing to act, the barrier behind them suddenly disappeared. What's going on? Zhu Fang and other mist ninjas saw this scene, their expressions changed drastically, and they quickly looked at the four mist ninjas. Then, they saw Qingming twisting the neck of the mist ninja. Seeing Qingming suddenly appearing outside the barrier, everyone was confused for a while, and had no idea what was going on. Taking this opportunity, Qingming formed seals with both hands, mobilized a large amount of chakra, took a deep breath, and then performed the ninjutsu, wind release, great breakthrough. Coincidentally, because of the delay just now, most of the mist ninjas had come to the front of him, which was convenient for him to perform the technique. The next moment, a hurricane appeared, and the entire mist ninja team was attacked from the rear, and there was no time to react. For a while, the formation was in chaos. Seeing this scene, Zhu Feng gathered chakra at the bottom of his feet in the crowd, tightly attached to the sea surface, stabilized his body, and shouted loudly, "Don't be chaotic, everyone get closer to me." As he spoke, he raised his hands, formed seals quickly, and performed the ninjutsu, ice release, ice wall technique at an unprecedented speed. He placed his hands on the sea in front of him, and a large amount of ice escape chakra was injected into the sea water. The next moment, a 7 or 8 meter high and dozens of meters long ice wall rose from the sea and stood in front of everyone, blocking the strong wind. Everyone stood firm. However, it was raining all night. Qingming had just used the wind escape, big breakthrough to disrupt the formation of the mist-hidden ninja, and Uchiha Qingming and others fought back. This was not instigated by Qingming, but their spontaneous behavior. Although such a move violated Qingming's previous order, Qingming had to say that they chose a good time. At this time, the mist ninjas in the field were resisting Qingming's wind escape ninjutsu, so how could they care about Uchiha Qingming and his group of Konoha ninjas who were about to escape? So, they were caught off guard by them. However, if Qingming could not create greater chaos later, the mist ninjas would only be in chaos for a while, and when those senior ninjas reacted, it would be the end of Uchiha Qingming and others. Fortunately, Qingming did not intend to sell them out. Looking at the ice wall erected in front of him, Qingming stopped performing the wind style. Great breakthrough without any hesitation. Then, he dodged and approached the ice wall. The next moment, the harsh friction sound rang out again. Zzzz, a giant shuriken condensed by chakra appeared in the palm of Qingming's left hand again. That's right, it was the S-level forbidden technique, wind style, Risen Shuriken. Indeed, as a forbidden technique, frequent use of wind style, Risen Shuriken will damage one's own flesh and meridians. Even though his wind style, Risen Shuriken has now reached the peak of level 5 and is only one step away from level 6, it is still inevitable. However, with a powerful recovery brought by the level 8 Palm Immortal technique and 18 points of constitution, this frequency is nothing now. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming pressed the rapidly rotating wind style, Risen Shuriken in his hand onto the ice wall. The next moment, a huge amount of ice crystal fragments fell like dust, and a huge hole was instantly opened in the ice wall. Looking at the dull-looking mist ninja on the other side of the ice wall, Qingming drew his long sword and slashed it instantly, cutting the opponent's throat directly. At this time, another mist ninja next to him reacted and waved his hand to stab out a kunai attack. However, the next moment, Qingming looked over and the man stood there. Swoosh, a shuriken flew out and hit the opponent's throat directly. Punchy, the throat was pierced, and the strong feeling of suffocation made the mist ninja break free from the illusion. However, it was too late. He covered his throat, staggered back a few steps, and then fell heavily, splashing a circle of water. Qingming retracted his gaze and looked around. Seeing more and more people gathering towards him, he suddenly felt a sense of heroism in his heart. So, he didn't dodge at all and rushed up with his sword. Ding ding ding. The kunai and shuriken that were attacking from the front were accurately shot down by him with his sword. The two sides collided with each other. Qingming used the illusion Sharingan to freeze one person, and then swung his sword to end his life. Then, more people surrounded him. Qingming pushed the three Magatama Sharingan to the limit, watching the actions of the people around him, and the whole person seemed to have entered a state of forgetting himself and the world. At this time, a series of information about these people's attack speed, attack angle, attack method, etc. flashed in his mind. And his brain was also running rapidly, summarizing this information, and then sorting out the priorities and arranging them in order. Finally, either dodging or counterattacking, resolve them one by one. At this moment, he was like a cold machine, without any feelings of his own, only knowing to act according to the program. It was precisely such efficient actions that allowed him to wander among the mist ninjas, as if he was in an unmanned place, which made people feel cold. Finally, the mist-hidden ninja who was good at auditory illusions could not stand it anymore and directly performed an indiscriminate illusion, knocking down Qingming and a large group of people around him. No, to be more precise, it was the people around Qingming who were knocked down. Qingming himself just stumbled 2 steps and did not fall. Coming back to his senses, Qingming recalled his previous state and thought to himself, if this were placed in the world of cultivation or fantasy, it should be considered an epiphany, right? However, in the ninja world, this was just the state he showed by exerting the power of the 3 Magatama Sharingan to the limit and suppressing his emotions to the minimum. Although he gained a lot of proficiency in illusion sword technique and instant sword technique during this period, that was all. As long as he used a little more effort, he could still enter the state next time, and there was no so-called epiphany at all. However, even so, Qingming was still a little angry. It was because the other party interrupted him so rudely, which made him lose a lot of proficiency invisibly, and proficiency to him was time and energy. Therefore, in order to make up for the time and energy he had lost, he could only ask the other party to die. With this thought, a layer of green light appeared on Qingming's body, merging him with a long sword in his hand. The next moment, the instant sword technique was performed. Qingming's figure suddenly turned into a residual image, and at an extremely fast speed, he bypassed the people on the ground who had not yet escaped from the illusion and were shaking their heads, and came in front of the mist-hidden ninja. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 372 Retreat. Swoosh, a flash of cold light passed by. The illusion sword technique was performed. The mist-hidden ninja in front of him was distracted by the cold light on the blade and paused. However, he was a Jonin who was good at illusions, so he reacted quickly and leaned back quickly. The long sword passed by, and a few strands of hair fell. Huh? Qingming exclaimed softly, as if he didn't expect that he would get rid of the influence of the illusion sword technique so quickly. However, that's all. With a thought, Qingming's wrist suddenly turned, and the long sword changed from a slash to an upward thrust, aiming directly at the opponent's carotid artery. A strong sense of crisis emerged, and Shugochi Hideo felt a chill in his heart. He didn't think about it and instinctively dodged backwards. Swish, the long sword slashed across his chest, leaving a deep scar, and scarlet blood instantly overflowed and soaked his clothes. A muffled groan came out of Shugochi Hideo's mouth. However, he ignored the pain of the wound, opened his mouth, and released the ninjutsu that he had prepared when dodging. The next moment, a visible sound wave came out of his mouth, spreading in all directions at a very fast speed. Qingming, as the person closest to him, was naturally the first to be hit. This time, although the sound wave emitted by the opponent was not an illusion, the effect it caused was no different from an illusion. The nerves in Qingming's ears were affected, and his balance could not be maintained. The whole person became shaky in an instant. Not only that, his internal organs also felt a sharp pain, as if he was hit by some invisible sledgehammer, and he felt nauseous and wanted to vomit. Resonance. Suddenly, Qingming's mind popped up a word he learned when he was a student in his previous life. He couldn't remember the details. He only knew that it seemed that everything had its own frequency, and once other things had the same frequency as them, resonance would occur. Generally speaking, resonance is harmful and will damage the object of resonance. Just like now, his internal organs were injured by Shugochi Hideo's sound wave resonance. However, unlike the previous life where he could only passively endure, as a supernatural world, there are various ways to resist this kind of damage. With a thought, the chakra in his body burst out, and an invisible might emanated from him. Qingming instantly dispelled the sound waves that invaded his body. Then, a flash of green light appeared, and the instant sword technique was performed again. He took a step forward and came to Shugochi Hideo again. At this time, the opponent had just retreated a few steps and had not walked far. Swish, another knife was swung out. On the blade, there was a faint cold light, and the illusion sword technique was in a state of being about to be launched. Shugochi Hideo was nervous and did not dare to look at him at all. At the same time, he did not dare to look at the long knife he chopped, and could only dodge by feeling. However, his physical skills were still almost there. After only a few slashes, Qingming seized the opportunity based on his previous experience and slashed his chest with a knife. Unlike the shallow scars last time, this time it was deep enough to see the bone. A large amount of blood gushed out, and the opponent's breath immediately wilted. Seeing this, Qingming's chakra burst out from his feet, and his speed increased sharply. In just a moment, he came to the opponent's side. Then, he swung the long sword in his hand, and the wind escape chakra in it flowed rapidly, forming a sharp cold light. The cold light passed through the opponent's neck, leaving a thin blood mark. However, it was this blood mark that made Shugochi Hideo freeze in place. He looked at Qingming and opened his mouth to say something, but just after spitting out a "you," his head slipped from his neck. The next moment, a large amount of blood gushed out from his neck, forming a blood fountain several meters high. Qingming looked at all this expressionlessly, and withdrew his eyes from the opponent's body and turned to look at the other people around him. Everything just now, although it was long to say, actually happened in an instant. At this time, the surrounding mist ninjas broke free from Shugochi Hideo's indiscriminate attack of the sound wave illusion. They looked at Shugochi Hideo's body and Qingming standing beside him with a sword, and their expressions were quite ugly. Kill. Finally, under someone's command, these people launched an attack. Then, the battle broke out again. Qingming did not give in at all. This chaotic battlefield was just right for his Sharingan and swordsmanship. Concentrating his mind, Qingming tried his best to recall the state he was in just now. It didn't take long for him to enter the state of forgetting himself again. Then, the surrounding mist ninjas saw that terrifying scene again. Qingming killed many people with his sword. During this period, there were naturally some mist ninjas who tried to use ninjutsu or illusion to attack by surprise, but he was keenly aware of them. Then, what greeted them was Qingming's long swords that swung one after another. On the top of the cliff, the Konoha ninjas who stayed behind saw the chaotic battlefield and looked at their own ninjas and enemy ninjas entangled with each other. After a little hesitation, they also joined the battle. This reduced the pressure on Uchiha Qingming and others again, so the momentum of the attack became more fierce. Time passed by every second. In the blink of an eye, more than half an hour passed. The sky gradually darkened, and the sun was about to disappear completely. Suddenly, a loud horn sounded from the distant mist-hidden ship. In an instant, the mist ninjas in the field seemed to be awakened, and one by one, they suddenly woke up from the fight. They looked back at the warship and saw that it had turned around. Without any hesitation, they immediately distanced themselves from the Konoha ninjas. After retreating to a safe place, they immediately turned around and ran towards the warships behind. Seeing this, except for a few Konoha ninjas who were already bloodthirsty, no one tried to stop them. This was not because they wanted to let the mist-hidden ship ninjas in the field go, but because they had no strength to stop them. Although the battle just now did not last long, in fact, in terms of intensity, it was no less than any major war. In fact, it was even more intense. After all, 200 people against 400 people, even with Qingming disrupting the opponent's formation twice and attracting a large number of high-level mist ninjas, it was quite difficult for the Konoha ninjas. When he was fighting just now, he didn't feel it much. Once the fighting stopped, he lost his fighting spirit. Similarly, Qingming didn't choose to stop them. Even though he knew that as long as he stopped the other party for a while, he could wait for the support of Kurosawa Changshu. By then, these mist ninjas would definitely not come back. But he still didn't stop them. As for the reason, it was very simple. What he could think of, these mist ninjas could definitely think of. Therefore, once he tried to stop them, these mist ninjas would definitely counterattack. By then, what awaited him would be a fierce battle. Originally, he had been targeted by the hidden mist village. If these mist ninjas all died here because of him, then what awaited him would definitely be further targeted. Although he had the existence of Heaven's Guard, Qingming was not afraid of being targeted. But as the saying goes, if you often walk on the shore, You will get your shoes wet. The reason why the trump card is a trump card is that it cannot be used lightly. If he is forced to use Heaven's Guard frequently because of the targeting of the hit and miss village, then sooner or later, someone will notice the clues. If someone could come up with a plan to deal with it, it would be a big trouble. Therefore, it is better to hide as much as possible. Moreover, when those Kirigakure Junior ninjas retreated, he was being watched by several Kirigakure Jonins and had no way to take action. Therefore, in the end, he could only let them leave. Chapter 373 Breakthrough. Looking at the 4 Kirigakure warships going away, after confirming that they would not return, Qingming began to order everyone to clean up the battlefield. Originally, he planned to hold the stronghold in this battle and wait for reinforcements. Unexpectedly, because of the Kirigakure village's targeting, it turned out to be like this. It can only be said that man proposes, God disposes. However, the result is not bad. Although they suffered a lot of losses in this battle, the team of 200 people directly lost about 80 people, and less than 60% survived, but they finally repelled the Kirigakure village team. At the same time, they also killed a lot of Kirigakure ninjas. In this way, the opponent should not launch too large a scale of attack in a short time. And he can also take advantage of this time to improve himself. Thinking of this, Qingming found a place and continued to perform the palm immortal technique to strengthen his body. About half an hour later, a team arrived here. The people who came were none other than the support troops sent by Kurosawa Changshu. Unfortunately, they are destined to run in vain. It can't be counted as a run in vain. At least, they sent manpower. 2 days passed in a flash. Just as Qingming expected, since the failure of the tentative attack 2 days ago, the hidden mist village has not launched a large-scale attack. However, there are many more small-scale battles. Qingming has no interest in such battles, so he simply handed them all over to his subordinates to deal with, and he entered the daily practice state. This afternoon, near the stronghold, on an open space, Qingming finished this round of palm immortal technique practice, and felt that the time was almost up, so he raised his hand to cancel the shadow clone technique. The next moment, the shadow clones who were practicing various skills around disappeared, and returned to his body with the experience and memory of the last hour of practice. A lot of experience and memory came to his mind. Qingming closed his eyes, and began to digest these experiences and memories carefully, and transformed them into proficiency. A quarter of an hour later, Qingming opened his eyes, and a flash of enlightenment flashed in his eyes. Then, a hint of joy appeared on his face. There was no other reason. After nearly 10 days of practice, his wind style, Shuriken was finally upgraded. Qingming opened the panel and took a glance, and saw that the level behind wind style, Shuriken had been upgraded from LV5, 2326, 5000, to LV6, 110,000. At this time, he could gather more chakra when he performed this technique. Correspondingly, its power would be further improved. Of course, these were secondary. The most important thing was that after this upgrade, he had a deeper understanding of wind style. In this way, combined with the insights brought by wind style, Wind Blade, which had been promoted to the perfect state 4 days ago, he was confident that he could develop a wind style flying ninjutsu. Qingming did it as soon as he thought of it. He raised his hands, crossed them to form the character seal, and performed the shadow clone technique again. Bang! Accompanied by a burst of chakra smoke, 9 shadow clones appeared on the field. Qingming asked 8 of them to continue their previous practice, and the remaining 1 began to develop a flying ninjutsu. That's right, Qingming didn't plan to develop it himself. Not to mention the danger of developing new ninjutsu, the practice of palm immortal technique and reflection heart technique alone cannot be neglected. So, let the shadow clone figure it out slowly. Anyway, he doesn't have any urgent need for flying ninjutsu now. It doesn't matter if it's earlier or later. In a flash, another 5 days have passed. It has to be said that the development of new ninjutsu is really not an easy task. In just 5 days, his shadow clone exploded hundreds of times because of chakra runaway. Because of this, he lost a lot of chakra. If it weren't for the frequent attacks of the mist ninja these days, he would have to go out from time to time, and he could harvest a wave of chakra by the way. Maybe it has begun to affect the progress of other skills. In the open space, feeling the memory reappearing in his mind, Qingming sighed, quickly browsed it, digested it, and opened the panel to take a look. After confirming that no new skills appeared, He cast the shadow clone technique again, splitting out a shadow clone and continuing to develop the flying ninjutsu. Compared with ordinary people, it was very simple for him to develop ninjutsu. As long as there was a prototype and it was recognized by the proficiency panel, it would be considered a success. As for the subsequent improvement, it could be done by hard work. However, even so, he still did not succeed. From this, we can imagine how difficult it is for other ninjas to develop new ninjutsu. Of course, this must also be due to the difficulty in developing flying ninjutsu, but it is undeniable that the development of a new ninjutsu is by no means an easy task. All he can do now is to slowly try and make mistakes. Shaking his head, Qingming stopped thinking about it. After quickly concentrating his mind, he began to cast the reflection heart technique to promote the evolution of the Sharingan. After these days of practice, the evolution of his Sharingan has approached the 10,000 point mark. If his previous premonition was correct, when he broke through this barrier, his spiritual attribute would be improved. At that time, his potential would also be improved. According to past experience, every time his potential is improved, the speed of chakra recovery will be increased. In this way, the progress speed of his other skills will also be improved. There is no doubt that this will be a comprehensive improvement. Various thoughts flashed through his mind. Soon, Qingming immersed his mind in the evolution of the Sharingan. Once, twice, 3 times. Unconsciously, Qingming has performed the heart reflection technique more than 40 times in succession. And on his panel, the evolution of the Sharingan is gradually approaching the 10,000 point mark. Finally, at a certain moment, when he performed the heart reflection technique again, the special chakra in his brain that was stimulated by it flowed into his eyes, and an invisible barrier was broken. Qingming only felt his head fogged, and his consciousness fell into a chaotic state. At this moment, time seemed to have lost consciousness. Qingming was in a daze, and it seemed that a year had passed, and it seemed that only a second had passed. Suddenly, Qingming opened his eyes. The next moment, a steady stream of spiritual power was born in his body, which directly increased his pupil power, and his Mangekyo Sharingan opened unconsciously. Qingming carefully felt the changes. In the dark, Qingming had a feeling that his Susanoo had gotten rid of the initial form and officially entered the first stage. Qingming let go of his perception and confirmed that there was no one around. With a thought, a silver-white skeleton appeared, protecting him from all directions. This was the first stage of Susanoo. Although it was still just a skeleton, it was not like the initial form, which could only condense ribs and arms. After entering the first stage, he could already condense a complete upper body. In this way, the defense power was naturally greatly improved. Chapter 374 Promotion and Allocation. Bang, bang, bang. Qingming reached out and knocked on the silver-white skeleton guarding the body in front of him. A cold steel touch came, which was tough and real. Qingming retracted his palm and murmured, "It is worthy of being the ultimate expression of Yindun's power." This feeling is so real. In the ninja world, Yindun represents spiritual energy, which can create form from nothing. The Uchiha clan's Susanoo was created in this way. Qingming can clearly feel that when maintaining the existence of Susanoo, his mental power is constantly lost. This is the price. In addition, maintaining it will also produce a strong pressure on the body. When Sasuke used Susanoo for the first time, he was almost crushed by the pain. It is not a simple pain, but every cell in the body is under pressure, giving people a feeling of being bitten by thousands of ants. That is to say, Qingming has experienced many battles, and his tolerance for pain has been greatly enhanced. Coupled with his strong physique, he can bear it without changing his face. Otherwise, he would have cried out in pain. However, despite this, the pain was still deeply rooted in his heart. It seems that the physique still needs to be improved. Feeling the pain, Qingming murmured, and then with a thought, he retracted the Susanoo. He let out a breath, and after the pain subsided, Qingming twisted his neck and muttered silently, "Panel." The next moment, the familiar light blue light screen appeared. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 12 years old. Constitution, 18 spirit, 1920 chakra, 53,200, 8,805,294,772, bloodline, Sharingan, Mangekyo, 8,783 50,000, 10,000 50,000, skills, chakra refining technique, LV5, 1973, 5,000, LV5, 2,183, 5,000, wind style, Shuriken, LV6, 1/10000, LV6, 1900, 10,000, water style, water array wall, LV5, 3850, 5000, LV6, 460/10000, water style, water dragon bullet technique, LV5, 3600, 5000, LV6, 250/10000, water style, great shark bullet technique, LV4, 701/2000, LV5, 101/5000, shadow clone technique, LV4, 1535/2000, LV4, 1930/2000, chakra absorption technique, LV5, 4350/5000, LV5, 4700/5000, Rasengan, LV6, 8170/10000, LV6, 9710/10000, Palm Immortal Technique, LV8, 14154/5000, LV8, 17514/5000, Chakra Scalpel, LV5, 2200/5000, LV5, 2500/5000, Cell Extraction Technique, LV4, 101/2000, LV4, 950/2000, Heart Reflection Technique, LV8, 7105/5000, LV8, 9539/50,000, Illusion Sword Technique, LV6, 4550/10,000, LV6, 7100/1000, Instant Sword Technique, LV5, 4595,000, LV6, 1410, 10,000, Chakra Control, LV5, 3230, 5000, LV5, 3482, 5000, Perfect Skills, Water Style, Mist Hidden Technique, LV5, 0/0, Wind Style, Wind Blade, LV7, 0/0, Qingming frowned as he looked at the spirit attribute on the panel, which had increased from 19 points to 20 points. Previously, he had expected that when the Sharingan's evolutionary degree broke through the 10,000 point mark, the spirit attribute should have increased by more than 1 point. However, he never expected that it would only increase by 1 point. This made Qingming a little disappointed. Taking a deep breath and calming down, Qingming calmed down and carefully felt the changes in his spirit. After a while, his frown gradually relaxed. It was not because his improvement was not as good as expected, but because the spiritual attribute from 19 points to 20 points was a watershed. Just like his physique attribute from 14 points to 15 points, it was a huge improvement. Therefore, it only increased a little. As for how big the improvement is, this can be seen from the increase in his potential. Qingming estimated that after this time, his theoretical chakra limit should be able to increase by 80,000 points. After the development is completed, the chakra limit will increase from 240,000 points to 320,000 points. Another thing is the chakra recovery speed. Although his body can only withstand 15 hours of chakra refining technique because his physique attribute has not increased. However, the speed of his body's natural chakra recovery has directly increased by 54,000 points compared to before, from the original 146,000 to the current 200,000 points. In other words, the chakra he can use every day will increase from 176,000 points to 230,000, equals 200,000 plus 15,000 points. Even so, it is still because of the limitation of the physique attribute that the effect of his spiritual attribute breaking through the 20-point mark has not been fully exerted. Otherwise, this improvement will be even greater. However, it can be foreseen that when his physique attribute also breaks through the 20-point mark, both the theoretical chakra limit and the chakra recovery speed will increase sharply. Unfortunately, this will not happen in a short time. According to his previous estimate, it will take about another month for his physique attribute to break through 19 points. And the time required to break through 20 points from 19 points will definitely exceed the 1.5 months from 18 points to 19 points. In other words, it will take at least 2.5 months for his physique attribute to break through the 20-point mark. 2.5 months, Qingming murmured, shook his head, and temporarily put all this behind him. Then, he began to think about how to allocate the newly added chakra. An extra 54,000 chakra points every day is not a small number. Qingming cast his eyes on the skill column. First, the reflection heart technique and palm immortal technique can be excluded. It's the same reason. Now these two skills have occupied a lot of his time. Even if he continues to increase the investment of chakra, he has no extra time to practice. The next is chakra absorption technique and chakra scalpel, as well as shadow clone technique. They are either about to be promoted or are temporarily sufficient. There is no need to invest chakra specifically, so they can also be excluded. In this way, there are only the skills that are being practiced. Qingming's eyes swept over these skills, recalling the practice experience in the past period of time, and finally decided to invest another 12,000 chakra points in wind style, Shuriken. In this way, the chakra used on it every day will increase to 70,000 points. Practicing with two shadow clones at the same time, the proficiency that can be obtained will increase from 380 points to 460 points. As for the remaining 42,000 chakra points, Qingming plans to take out 20,000 points and evenly distribute them to water style, water dragon bullet technique and water style, water array wall. In this way, the chakra used for these two skills will increase to 20,000 points every day, and the proficiency that can be obtained will also increase from 115 to 230. In addition, Qingming also plans to take out 15,000 points for the practice of Rasengan. As his wind style, Shuriken continues to improve, the requirements for Rasengan are getting higher and higher. And he needs to continue to invest chakra in it. With the investment of 15,000 chakra points, the proficiency that his Rasengan can gain every day will increase from 110 points to 270 points. In this way, in just about a day, his Rasengan will be promoted to level 7, surpassing wind style, Shuriken again. In this way, wind style, Shuriken can also grow rapidly. Retracting his thoughts, Qingming began to calculate the remaining chakra. 54000, 12000, 20000, 15000 equals 7,000. After thinking about it, Qingming decided to use all the 7,000 chakra points for the development of flying ninjutsu. Although the activities of the mist ninjas were quite frequent these days, which could provide him with extra chakra, it was not stable after all. In order to develop the flying ninjutsu as soon as possible, he decided to invest some chakra every day, so as to speed up the process. So far, the chakra recovery that increased due to the improvement of the spiritual attribute has all been used. So, Qingming stopped thinking about it, closed the panel, and started practicing. Chapter 375 Situation and Progress. Time flies, and the years pass by like a shuttle. In a blink of an eye, more than half a month has passed. Time has come to mid-August. Since entering August, the offensive of the hidden mist village has become more and more fierce. Not only the Eagle's Beak Cliff stronghold guarded by Qingming, but also the entire northern defense line, and even the central and southern defense lines, have been fiercely attacked by the hidden mist village. Among them, there are many cases where strongholds have been breached and defense lines have been torn apart. Even Qingming has been mobilized and supported several times. You know, the Eagle's Beak Cliff stronghold where he is stationed is the weakest point of the entire front line. Even he has to be mobilized. You can imagine how bad the situation is. And the reason for this situation, one of the important factors is that Konoha is in a decisive battle with the Hidden Sand Village and can't take care of this side at all. And this gave the Hidden Mist Village an opportunity. They want to break through the Konoha defense line in one fell swoop and invade the territory of the Land of Fire. Unfortunately, the overall combat power of the Hidden Mist is not enough after all. In addition, Konoha spent 2 or 3 years to build this line of defense. It may not be impregnable, but it cannot be broken in just half a month. Therefore, the war situation was deadlocked there. Konoha could not drive away the Kurigakure ninjas, and the Kurigakure ninjas had no way to completely break through the line of defense. In this way, it became a luxury for the Kurigakure to invade the Land of Fire. However, they could not stop the infiltration of small forces. Therefore, the war spread directly to the inner perimeter of the defense line, and the convoy responsible for transporting logistical supplies was often attacked. However, if you often walk by the river, you will get your shoes wet. The Kurigakure infiltration team frequently sabotaged like this, and finally encountered a ghost. Just a few days ago, Qingming suddenly heard a piece of news, that is, the 10,000-year Jinan mighty killed 5 of the 7 ninja swordsmen alone. This news directly shocked the entire Konoha village, and also shocked Qingming. Originally, Qingming thought that he had killed Kurocharega and Biwajuzo, and this incident should not have happened. Unexpectedly, it still happened. Although Kurocharega and Biwajuzo died, the Kurigakure village quickly selected 2 more ninja sword holders, and then they were kicked to death by Might Guy's 8 gates. This made Qingming sigh that the inertia of the world is really strong. However, there are also some details that are different. For example, in the original world line, there were 3 surviving ninja sword 7 people. They are Kurocharega, the holder of Thunder Blade, Gate, Biwajuzo, the holder of Broken Blade, Decapitation Blade, and Zigguishin Pufferfish, the holder of Long Blade, Samehoda. Now, there are only 2 survivors. They are Zigguishin Pufferfish, the holder of Long Blade, Samehoda, and Kurishin Kashimaru, the holder of Long Blade, Sewing Needle, who had fought with him before. It can be seen that there is still a little change. And it was because of this incident that the Kurigakure village, which was attacking frantically on the front line, suddenly stopped its offensive. These days, the front line is quite quiet. This also gave Qingming a rare period of peace to practice. Although he had not stopped practicing in the past few days, the frequent missions still had some impact. Now it was different, he could practice with peace of mind. In the clearing in the forest, Qingming finished practicing this round of reflection heart technique, and with a thought, he lifted the shadow clone technique. The next moment, the shadow clones practicing various skills around him suddenly turned into a ball of chakra smoke and disappeared. At the same time, a lot of practice experience and memories emerged in Qingming's mind. In the past, he would feel a headache when receiving so many memories at the same time. But now, with the spiritual attribute breaking through the 20-point mark, his mental power has skyrocketed, and he can easily bear it. Qingming closed his eyes, carefully digested these experiences and memories, and transformed them all into the proficiency of the corresponding skills, imprinting them deep in his mind. Time passed by minute. At a certain moment, Qingming opened his eyes, and a gleam of brilliance flashed in his eyes. Then, he raised his right hand, spread his palm, and gathered strands of chakra into a small shuriken shape. Then, the shuriken quickly grew larger and rotated, tearing the surrounding air and bringing up a whistling sound. That's right, this is the S-level forbidden technique, wind-style spiral shuriken. After more than half a month of practice, his wind-style spiral shuriken has been upgraded to a higher level, from the previous LV6, 1900, 10,000, to the current LV7, 1/20000. At this time, when he performed this technique again, he already had a feeling of being able to do whatever he wanted. Qingming's mind moved, and he wanted to throw the wind-style spiral shuriken in his hand. However, after trying several times, he failed. In the end, Qingming could only sigh helplessly. It still doesn't work. LV7 is the limit of B-level ninjutsu, but it is not S-level. Therefore, it is normal that he cannot do the handoff attack that can only be done under perfect control. However, although he could not attack without leaving his hands, his understanding of wind escape had risen to a higher level. Qingming had a hunch that as long as he was given some more time, he would be able to successfully develop the flying ninjutsu. That's right, more than half a month had passed, and he still hadn't developed the flying ninjutsu. The difficulty was much higher than he expected. However, after today, it should be almost done. Concentrating his mind, Qingming looked at the other skills on the panel. Half a month was not long, but not short. During this time, in addition to the promotion of wind escape, Rasenshuriken, his shadow clone technique, chakra absorption technique, Rasengan, chakra scalpel and thin extraction technique were also upgraded by 1 level. Among them, shadow clone technique was upgraded from LV4, 1930, 2000, to LV5, 385/5000. This level of promotion increased the maximum number of shadow clones he could create from 15 to 20. Moreover, the chakra consumed by performing this technique has also been reduced from 7 points of the chakra possessed by all the shadow clones before to 6 points. Although it may not seem like much, the reduction of 1 percentage point per person at a time will save a considerable amount of chakra if the number of times increases. In addition, as the level of the shadow clone technique increases, the stability of the shadow clones created by performing this technique is also constantly improving. Now, they can practice skills with shadow clones for a longer time. Of course, this does not have much effect on his situation of refreshing once an hour, but it is very useful for his development of flying ninjutsu. At least, after the stability of the shadow clones has improved, the number of times they exploded due to chakra runaway when trying again has been significantly reduced. This has saved him a lot of chakra invisibly, and at the same time has also increased his development speed. Looking away, Qingming looked at the chakra absorption technique and the chakra scalpel. Both of them were promoted naturally because of the recent frequent battles and the number of times they were used. Among them, the former has been upgraded from LV5, 4700 5000, to LV6, 250/10000, and the speed of absorbing chakra has increased again. At LV5, when performing the chakra absorption technique, he can absorb 1000 points of chakra from the target per second, and convert 90% of it into his own chakra. Now, the chakra absorbed per second has doubled directly to 2000 points, and the conversion rate is also 100%. It can be said that the improvement is huge. As for the latter, it has been upgraded from LV5, 2500 5000, to LV6, 100/10000, which has not changed much, but it is more handy to use. There are also Rasengan and skin extraction technique. The former was promoted to level a long time ago, and is now rushing towards LV8. The latter has barely been upgraded to level, from LV4, 950/2000, to LV5, 30/5000, and the proficiency has increased again. In addition to these skills that have been upgraded, there is another skill that is on the verge of promotion, that is the illusion sword technique. After more than a dozen battles and persistent practice, his illusion sword technique has reached the peak of level 6, and is only one step away from level 7. And level 7 is almost the perfect state of this technique. It can be predicted that once this technique is successfully promoted, his melee ability will inevitably usher in an improvement, perhaps not much, but it is definitely worth looking forward to. Thinking of this in his heart, Qingming closed the panel, performed the shadow clone technique, and entered the state of practice again. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.